Time Enser.
Ramiro Chavez.
Thomasina Cooper, Assistant to Time Enser.
La Bonita Beaumont, Clerk of the Board.
Robin Board's Executive Assistant.
There we go. And here we go.
Yeah, here we go, Commissioners. So
Will Robin be here today, or is she out?
she should be here.
She
She
should
was a
be
little
here.
bit feeling under the weather over the
Okay.
weekend, but she is planning to be here.
Okay, good, thank you. She'll have a lot of questions or answers for questions, I'm sure.
Yep.
And where do we leave off?
So, Commissioners, for your considerations to review the agenda for next week's board meeting, considering that we do not have a board meeting this
Oh,
evening.
I'm sorry, I didn't even see the agenda. I just saw the budget. So here we go. Boy, I'm a little bit off. I just saw the budget stuff. Okay, here we go. So this is the agenda setting for Tuesday, June 4th, 2019. And we will call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Ty Menser, and approval of the agenda and the board meeting minutes. The agenda for Tuesday, the 4th of June, and the meeting minutes from May 21, 2019. And then we have a proclamation for the National LGBTQ Pride Month.
Yeah, Commissioners, for your consideration is for you to proclaim the month of June as the National LGBTQ Pride Month, and encourage all Thurston County citizens to celebrate the progress within the culture towards this group of our society. Over the last few years, we have secured representatives to come and receive the proclamation, so we're in the process of doing so. And also during that week, we'll fly the Pride flag here at the courthouse campus for the entire week. So.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
No.
Anything?
No.
Beautiful. I saw the proclamation for review. I got that done today. And then we have an opportunity for the public to address the board. Are you aware of anything coming up?
No, I don't have anything that might be to your attention.
Okay. Do you have any? I might guess that we might have some burn ban or fireworks issues. We're starting to get emails on that again.
One is related to, I believe, Scott Lake. A formal request for you to issue a fireworks ban is going to be coming your way. That email was specifically related for you not to take that into consideration. But even if you would, it is not timely to do so this year, because the way you issue a ban on fireworks, you have to hold a public hearing, and then you have to give a year in advance. We do have in regulation is, depending on the hazardous weather conditions, is to ban the discharge of fireworks. It's different. Banning fireworks, that will be the sale and use of fireworks. What we have in code is that based on hazardous weather conditions, we just ban the discharge of fireworks, not necessarily the sale of fireworks. It's two different things. So this afternoon, I will be meeting with the staff, the fire marshal, as well as the emergency management director, to see how the weather conditions are coming. And it will be two elements of our discussion: is the actually burn ban, and that's the outside burn that we ban on a yearly basis, and that's seasonal. And whether that warrants to move the burn ban early in the year, that will be part of the discussion. On the normal circumstances, we implement a burn ban from just about the end of June through the end of September. So if there is a need to move that, we'll brief the board as to the results of that discussion.
Okay.
And also we'll be looking on the weather conditions, whether the discharge of fireworks will be warranted or not.
All right. Any questions or comments on that issue?
Is there a time by which you have to, I thought there was a time by which you have to say that we're not going to have the fireworks discharged in July 4th?
Yeah, it has to be 24 hours before the official legal sales of fireworks takes place. That will be June 28th. So any decisions related to that has to be done by June 27th.
Okay, and then is that decision made by this committee that you described? Or does it
That
come to
decision,
us?
the code states the county managers made that decision after consulting with the fire marshal and consulting with all the fire districts.
Got it.
And I'm in the process of doing that.
Go ahead, Gary.
And regardless of what we do, we have no authority over discharge or sale on Indian reservations, is that right?
No, you do not have that
And
option.
do we have enough deputy sheriffs out there if we do decide we're going to put something in place to enforce that, would you say?
Well,
Are we going to pay overtime to the sheriff's office to go out and do enforcement?
the enforcement's a different question, and I think perhaps that's a leading question,
Sure it is.
Commissioner.
Yes, I would say it is a leading question. It just shows
Yep.
how stupid it is that we are in a situation where we might make a ruling and there will be absolutely no enforcement, no ability for enforcement. So at some point, the state needs to weigh in on this,
Right.
see if they can fix things.
And I believe it, and that is the challenge for for all the jurisdictions. They have implemented
Yes.
a complete ban of fireworks, and that goes to here, the city of Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater, because the enforcement aspect of that is cumbersome.
Well, I just might point out that they have a revenue source that's unbelievable compared to the county revenue source, and
Yeah.
they have officers that can do that. We
And-
don't.
And yet they still won't respond because the calls are inundating.
Yeah.
And they don't respond unless it's life
It's
threatening
kind of a,
emergency
it's
now.
kind of a joke in the community, and it's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Any other public comment that might come? Anybody? No? Okay. That moves us to the county manager's update.
Yes, I will follow up to you receive public testimony from Mr. John Pettit, and he made 2 points on his testimony. One was the Henderson watershed, and at that point he threatened litigation against the county. So I will respond that the county will not be responding to that particular matter since he threatened litigation. I just checked with the prosecuting attorney, and the county will respond accordingly when he files those steps.
Okay.
And the next item
you have a
that he
question on that one, on
I
that
have a
issue?
question on that. Okay, I know we don't respond on threatened litigation, but do we wait and then if there is litigation, then we have to put a lot of revenue and resources into responding. My question is, are we 100% within the law on those discrepancies that Mr. Pettit is pointing out, that we're doing the right thing? I mean, he's obviously claiming we're not, but have you had discussion with legal counsel, or are we going to get briefed as a board that we are in fact well within the guidelines of doing what we're doing in our legislative role?
every single testimony related to the subject that we have received, I have shared with prosecuting attorneys, and they are well aware, and I believe they're within the bounds of the law. Now, you're requesting to have a briefing from your legal counsel. Is that what you're asking, Commissioner?
Well, I'm sure council told the county government that they were all well within their position on the Maytown lawsuit. In the end, the taxpayers lost $16 million a few years ago because it wasn't proper what was being done. I just don't want to do something improper, and if we are doing something improper, I want to make sure that we stop that process or correct that process. So, and I don't know that we are or we aren't. I just want to make sure that we don't get in a pickle like past boards have gotten into over litigation.
So that's what
So
I'm
you're
asking.
asking for a
Would
briefing then?
Would you like a briefing?
I'd certainly like to know.
Then you're asking for a briefing.
Yeah, I suppose.
Okay, yes, that's a yes. Would you?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Yes.
It's pretty
Oop.
down in the weeds. The
It
exact
is.
argument he's making about the annual review and the stuff is pretty down in the weeds, so it would not hurt to have legal's opinion.
We won't know unless we get in a brief.
Okay.
I will schedule an executive session if you like.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything further on that?
Nope.
Good. Good point, though. Item number 3 is consent items, letters A and B. The first is clerk of the court, and the clerk is looking to reclassify a position.
Give me a second. Take
Oh, yeah,
notes.
take your time.
Take your time, you got 30 seconds.
Yeah, I had to catch up with you. Now you catch up with me.
Thank you, Commissioners. Yeah, this is a request for your consideration from the clerk's office to reclassify an existing clerk's judicial information specialist to a clerk judicial support specialist. And the reason is over the years, the function of this particular position has changed, and the business needs have changed as well. That by going through this reclassification, it will allow the clerk's office to meet the demands of the current business needs. This particular proposal, it will have an impact of, it will go from, this position will go from $4,541 a month to $4,768 a month. That will be a $227 increase, or just about 5%. This is funded by the general fund, and the clerk's office is not asking for an additional funding. They are planning to absorb this within their means, within their approved budget. And in any classification, what I give you is the top end of each the classification. That may not necessarily translate on the actual budget. It just allows the range to be higher. Anyways, I just want to make that clarification. Do you have any questions?
I do, but go ahead. You have a question?
No
question? You said this can impact the general fund. Doesn't this has nothing to do with the reinstatement of the impact fees?
No, that's a different action, because you have not taken an action on the first quarter budget amendment. It shouldn't be prudent for you to consider that at this point.
Okay, so that's the
It's a little reverse. Yeah.
process. Okay, got it. Thank you. 3B, Bravo, approval of the vouchers. And we will get to that. And if we have any questions, we'll let you know. Item number 4, Public Works, request for approval of an internal or an ILA with Thurston or TRPC, Thurston Regional Planning Council for Transportation Planning and Technical Services.
Yes, the Thurston Regional Planning Council provides transportation planning and technical services in the region, including all the cities as well as the county. And over the years, that has been proven fruitful, meaning that having a single organization that goes through this planning efforts provides consistency as to how the region needs to be moving forward. The services they provide is modeling. That's not traditional modeling. There's a traffic modeling they have. They do have a model in place. They provide mapping services, data analysis, meeting facilitations, transportation data storage, and that is in coordination with the Washington State Department of Transportation, planning studies, and communication materials. This particular request is for you to consider getting into a local agreement for 10 years. The agreement at this point doesn't have a dollar amount, and this is strategic as to why it doesn't have a dollar amount. Because the dollar amounts will be a subsequent approval based on the different services they will provide. For instance, if we need an actual modeling, transportation modeling services, then we engage on a specific scope of work, we agree on the cost, and then we'll approve that on a yearly basis. This 10-year agreement is just the umbrella as to how we can coordinate with TRPC on all those services.
Okay.
Have we had is this updating a previous agreement, or is this
Yes,
a new?
and those are the services that we have. And I think the previous agreement, it was for 3-4 years. This is just a 10 years, so we don't have to come back and do that all over again.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
No, sir.
And this TRPC is that same outfit that just hired Allison Osterberg?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just verifying that. 4B, road vacation as requested per Pete Befield et al.
Yeah, this is a request for your consideration. Let me give you a couple of maps. They're attached online for the public to see, just for you to have an idea.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Romero.
B.
So let me walk you through the process as to what road vacation process is. Is a little bit interested. State law allows for any citizen that abuts an open right-of-way to request a road vacation. And unopen right-of-way is when the county owns pieces of property for a specific purpose, public purpose. But over the years, the county has not opened it, so we have not maintained it, and we have not it open to the public. And under those circumstances, and we have a lot of those right-of-ways, because it's probably inherited from turn of the century platting processes. They have been reserved for public purpose. They never materialize in terms of the needs that we have right now. So under those circumstances, any particular property owner can request a vacation of that. But the nuance is no every single one property owner can request. For instance, if it has to be the abutting property owner who has to request that vacation. Because when we vacate the right-of-way, that goes back to the underlying property owner. And even goes back to even how the state law defines county's right-of-way. County's right-of-way is a mere easement. And the easement is given by the abutting property owners. And as long as the county provides a public service and opens to the public, we own in perpetuity. It is difficult. We cannot vacate county right-of-way if it's open to the public. The law does not allow to do that. It does allow if we don't maintain it, we don't open for public purposes. So in this case, the abutting property owner submitted an application back in August to 2nd, 2018, requesting vacation of this particular property. I give you a copy of of the location of the map, as well as the where it's located. That's the vicinity, and at red is the proposed right-of-way, and in the back give you an aerial that gives you a depiction that really is not unused. And in fact, some of the structures already abutting the existing county's right-of-way. So there's really has not been a use for public use on this. And there's 4 underlying property owners. All 4 submitted that application for vacation of this county's right-of-way. The process goes: they make a formal submittal. The county engineer make an assessment and determines whether is the road now had ever been previously been used for public use. The answer is no. What is the conditions of the road? There's no road in here, so the answer is no. Is this advisable to preserve for a future county road? If you see the area, there is not a logical connection the county will ever use this right-of-way for a roadway. Will this be a public benefit? Absolutely. As soon as we vacate those portions, this goes to the tax title to those abutting property owners, which their land will increase and the property tax will increase as well. And also we don't incur liability if somebody gets injured in that unopened right-of-way as well. So that was submitted. The county engineer provided a report to the hearing examiner. The hearing examiner held a public hearing on April 23rd, 2019, which they did not receive any public testimony against this particular proposal. And on May 9th, the hearing examiner heard report recommending the vacation of, for you to consider vacating this particular property. There is a caveat. Obviously, the county does not just give us a gifting of public funds. There has to be a financial transaction. So this proposal before you, if you agree to vacate this right away, it will be contingent on them paying the appropriate fee that is outlined in county code.
I'm having trouble
Yeah, question
matching up
two.
the picture to
I
the
am too. I don't
Okay.
know
drawing.
where the right of way is here.
So I'll
where's
give
that?
you, this is the location, where's
I got
the
that.
vicinity.
And is that in the Lacey UGA eventually?
No, it's outside.
Is that okay?
This county is. So now, I give you this, and what is depicted in red is what is the request of for vacation. Is between those two properties.
We're trying to match what you're holding to the picture.
Yeah.
So, and now if you take this,
Okay.
that's what you see. I don't know if you can see the red square is the first property that you see here,
Show me. that.
right here.
Is the first, so
Right
it's
here?
a small
It's right here.
property.
This one here.
Small property right there. Right here,
So-
right
On
above.
top.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
So this one is this one.
Okay.
That one is that one.
Okay.
And that one is that one. Okay?
And this is the parcel right here that they're talking about?
Yes.
This.
And how many feet or square
Yeah.
feet or?
There, but not this, I guess, this little
Yeah, I don't know
orange
that
notch.
30 by 60, 30 by 30 area not included.
Yeah. And what it is this little piece that you see not included. The Department of Public Works suggested to the hearing examiners they should just take everything. And the hearing examiner decided not to, just to go with the original application by the applicants. So that little square is still in county's right away, which is a little bit odd on that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Because
Oh,
that's
are we aware why?
because that's outside of the property owners. If you see, that's
Oh.
an easement. So so then who takes responsibility of that? That is the unknown
Got it.
of that little square.
Huh.
Okay, well then, my question is, isn't the county treasurer trying to dispose of these type of properties through a process he's got in place?
It's different though. It's different is tax title versus unopened right of way. The tax title is when property owners have defaulted on their taxes and become delinquent properties on the taxes. That's when the taxes takes, no ownership takes responsibility to maintain those tax title properties until we can surplus.
Okay,
Unopened county right of way is different because those were given to the county for a specific purpose. But that purpose has not been fulfilled, and that is the result of this vacation.
I'm good.
Yeah, it makes sense to me now.
And I'm going through this process because you're new in this process. You have seen those vacations in the past, similar.
Vacations, yeah.
This is a little bit
getting
interesting.
it back
how-
on the tax rolls for me is justification to,
And that's the public benefit.
yeah.
Okay. So the road vacation stands as it is. And then we got the approval of the BoCC work session summaries, item number 5.
Yeah, it was for your consideration last week. Commissioner Edwards requested to have the actual meeting notes be printed. That was given for his review. So this is coming back for your action. And again, this is the on the county managers because those are meeting notes from last year, and obviously Commissioner Menser was not part of those notes.
And Commissioner Menser won't vote on those because he wasn't here. So it's incumbent upon us. And
I
do you have those meetings
would
yet?
assume he will
Yep, got 'em.
excuse from the vote. he will
Correct.
excuse himself vote against it.
Okay, so we'll keep that on there then. And the rest of it is a work in progress. Okay. That takes care of that meeting, the agenda for next Tuesday, June 4. Now, all we've been waiting for is the budget. Here
Yeah.
we go.
So, Robin is on her way, and so before she comes, I'd just like to make a point. I just received a copy of the appointment letter to Mr. Richard Mankemeyer, and I noticed the Commissioner Menson signed that letter. I'd just like to praise you in signing that letter. I know that you voted against that appointment, but I believe the intent of your signature is to go with the majority of the board and show a unified front. Sometimes democracy works in different ways. So from my perspective, I'd just like to say thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you, because that goes to character.
Thank you.
When I heard that last week, it went back to the 4-hour training that you and I went to, Jurassic Rules or Jurassic Park or Jurassic Rules, whatever it's called, that organization that does all the Roberts rules and such, and they specifically pointed that out. Have you have attended that class or no?
I
That
heard your
course?
summary of it at the study meeting,
Yeah,
but I haven't attended that.
Oh, that's right, I forgot. Yeah. That the rule, even though I might vote against something, the board rule stands, and we support it, even though we voted against it. It's the rule, it's the body
Yeah.
that's moving whatever it is forward. So thank you for that. Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out, Romero.
Thank you. So I know that we have a model that's coming, and Robin is on her way. Would you like to take a 10-minute break before we start?
Let's
with
do
the
that.
Funding, please.
We've been at this for a full 28 minutes, so let's take a 10-minute break.
And the next is the rest of the morning is going to be budget conversations.
Right, so we'll be back in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank
Someone
you.
to hit the kill switch. gotta be, it's already a minute late.
They can't get into the electrical stuff.
No, swell.
That's gotta be frustrating.
Welcome back. And we'll be getting in just a moment, as soon as we get the screens going and the budget up and visible.
So this is the amendment one detail. Your footer says March. It's just change the footer. It's this one. Is that what you want? And then put March because, you know, it's May. I know, well, that was close.
Oh, good job.
It did autocorrect. It didn't autocorrect? I don't know.
Five more minutes, sorry.
Why don't you have Brian, or Dennis come to some of these meetings?
Are you at this NAMI forum tonight
Page 7
No, I'm at the
changes.
Tenino City Council meeting tonight.
for the court?
Understand our pain.
I mean, I don't know.
Do you know what the NAMI forum is?
I saw it. I don't recall. No.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to make it. I just wondered how important it was.
Yeah, I read another NAMI this morning about
I think it's the
something,
is the result of the holiday
Kirkland
weekend
or something like that, or Kansas or something. NAMI function.
and leading to
Yeah,
this.
every time I see something, I just put it on my calendar, and you know, just in case I can go. But then when it gets, to the time, I can't remember like what was this about? Was it important? Was I just throwing it on there for just in case?
You're allowed to touch your calendar?
No,
Yeah.
Wow.
I agree.
We
There's
should.
other issues that we need to resolve, but this particular matter is.
Yeah, 'cause we're only
result
just a
of
couple
that.
minutes away. Otherwise, you get bouncing back and forth, and I don't care if the public hears this chit chat while we're waiting for budget. Yeah, but we're not allowed to touch the calendar because I only know I'll mess it up or I'll add something that she has to redo it because she's looking at Kelly's looking at several different calendars to coordinate. If I add something, she goes, "What'd you just add?" Because we're adding from the county manager, or we're adding,
Right.
and there's a conflict, or it has to be put on the master calendar.
Well, yeah,
Good for you.
I let Thomasine and Ramiro can put things on there.
Yeah.
But I do put things on there too, and I have a green personal. Like I have to see my personal calendar and my work calendar in one place. I can't. My brain can't do that. So I have a green
I see.
calendar for personal items,
Nice.
so I can just see this is where I need to. This is my life right there.
Because I have to go back and forth. I'm afraid of marrying the two together in any way.
Okay. Well, I just put places that I have to be to pick up my kids or whatever. Because if somebody says, "Oh, if Ramiro says, can we do a work session on Thursday at 5?" Like, and I have to be able
Make
to say
kids
yes. Yeah, I may have to go to. I may be
you.
picking up my kids from soccer, and my wife's in a training, and
I'm allowed to put couple things on there. You can hit private, or I'll put just for information.
yeah. I'm still working it out, but this is working pretty good. Thanks. I used to do everything on paper. That's what I did.
More budget paper.
So who is going to be attending tomorrow afternoon? There is a small reception to say thank you to the legislative delegation. Is in the master calendar.
I think that I am.
Yeah.
At 4:30
Yes.
to 6:30.
South Island Community College.
Yeah, I'll be there.
It's more of a, well, it says reception, so it's like an open house hit and run. It's not a function. You're there for 2 hours or 3 hours.
Well, it is it's not an open house, if that's what you ask. And this is a reception. All the legislative delegation will be there, representatives from the cities as well as the county, elected officials. I'll be attending along with you.
Okay.
It just gives you an opportunity to say in person thank you to all the legislators that has helped us on
All right.
the items.
At 3 o'clock, what's the PAO update? What is that?
That's the prosecuting attorney's office update about their office. They like to give you a perspective as to, as a follow-up to the state of the prosecuting attorney's office, and it's in general terms where they are.
So are we about ready?
Ready? Yep, we're ready, Commissioner.
Good.
Can you turn it on? Oh, we're on? Okay.
People at home, thank you for your patience. We're off and running.
So thank you, Commissioners. We're back, and this agenda setting is a little bit different than the traditional agenda settings. You start at 8:30, and you already review the agenda for next week's June 4th Board of County Commissioners meeting. As a reminder to the public, we do not have a board meeting this afternoon. And the remainder of this morning is, and Robin is going to facilitate the process to get some direction from the board on the proposed first quarter budget amendment for the 2019-2020 budget. This is the third session that we have worked with you. There's a lot of information today. Hopefully we can streamline your decision-making process. But along the way, if you have any questions, please let us know. We'll be more than happy to follow suit. So the way we are going to go through this morning, there is three elements of the first quarter budget amendment. One is the capital projects, and there is a report associated with that, and we'll facilitate that decision point for you. Then is the general fund requests. And that's perhaps where most of your attention is going to be this morning, because that has the most impact to the county's the general fund. And Robin will facilitate with you a little bit of an interactive model that whatever decisions you made on a line item by line item, you will see the impact on the ending fund balance. And that is important for you to consider as you make those decisions. We may have to come back again on a second round based on how the ending fund balance is after you're done with the general fund. And the third part is all the protected funds, other than the general fund. And those really doesn't have an impact, because it does have an impact, requires some additional expenditures, but most has come with revenue and expenditures. And at that point, we'll walk you through. And if you have any questions, if you have any direction, hopefully direction will be done at that time.
Any questions before we begin?
No, sir.
So are we going to go back to this thing, going through line item number 90 where we left off, or are we going to start with these things we just handed to us?
Yeah, Robin is going to walk you through here in a minute.
Okay.
So I'd like to start with the general fund. And I've brought some new documents to you that hopefully makes it a little easier to put this in context and see the impact on the fund balance. So the first item I have for you is something that you should be becoming familiar with, and that's the biennial forecast. Most of this is history, so you can see where we're at and how far we've come. And the column that is within the bars, that's current biennium and 2 future years. So if you look at 2019 and 2020 as budgeted, assuming a 3% reversion, we would have an ending fund balance this year of just under $11 million, and in 2020 an ending fund balance of $11.7 million. Then looking at the future slow growth in the fund balance. So that's the starting point. And that's what the model on the screen depicts. You see that over time, the fund balance, which is the bars, has gone up and down. The dark black straight line, that's $10 million. That's your minimum ending fund balance to meet cash flow needs. The 2 solid bars are this biennium. You see that we're just under 11 million predicted for this year, at 11.7 for next year, with growth in the future. The solid line that is green is revenue, and the dotted line that is red is expenditures. And what you really want is for your expenditures to be higher than your, or your expenditures to be lower than your revenue. That's right, your revenue should be higher than expenditures. So here's where we are right now. Again, this is the starting point. We're going to start from here. So any questions about where we're beginning?
No.
Okay,
No.
good. So the first thing
do
I'm
you have-
going
do you
to
have any
do
No.
Oh, sorry.
is not on any of the papers that you've been given. And that is to put in a COLA in 2020. We've been notified that the CPI is 2.4%. Your labor contracts, some of them include a COLA at the CPI for 2020. That is the first thing that we should address here. I'm going to put a 2.4% COLA in, and this is just an assumption. You're not making a decision on this, but we need to put this in to have a realistic look at what the future holds.
Does that include that's in the agreement, contract agreement now? And/or does that trigger other wage openers and other contracts?
Some of your contracts specifically include the CPI, others don't. Some I may have wage openers. Debbie could tell you a lot more about that.
Okay.
What I do know, though, is that in the past, the board has been consistent in a COLA. If one group gets a certain COLA, others do as well. So again, I'm putting this amount in as a placeholder, if you will, so you can see the impact on the fund balance and other spending decisions are in context. So, you know, this is not a surprise to you when we hit the midterm.
Yeah.
Related to the contracts, we are in the process of avoiding any wage reopeners. And in fact, you have approved 2 major contracts with the sheriff deputies, as well as the correction officers. That is, those new contracts are 3-year contracts. They give us some predictability as to how the cost of living increases will be put in place. And those contracts do not include any wage reopener on a yearly basis. So, because that becomes a little bit of unknown, and that's what we'll try to avoid. Now, the contracts that are currently in the process of being negotiated with the rest of the unions here in the county will not include any wage reopeners as well.
Okay.
Okay, so you see that if we put in a 2.4% COLA, each percent is approximately $500,000 in the general fund, and it carries forward into the future. So that immediately brings your 2020 fund balance down to just over the $10 million mark. So if we had nothing else going on, if we didn't have the restoration of the impact fees from the state, I would already be telling you you can't afford any changes. This is it.
When you say any changes, any COLA adjustment or anything?
No, the COLA, I believe you're somewhat locked into.
Okay.
We could, of course, negotiate it, but that would be about all you could do for 2020. And we could just close the doors and be done with budget for a year. However, we do have new revenue, so you've got some room for choices. We're going to go now to this new worksheet. I've tried to simplify all of the lines. Yep, it looks like that.
I got 2 of them that look kind of the same. Let's see, that's the darker blue. Okay.
Yep.
Amendment number 1.
Amendment number 1, still 2019 amendment number 1. And what I've done here is taken and grouped the general fund requests. So hopefully it's going to be a little easier to walk through the choices that you have, and I'm going to put them into the model as we go. So the first item that, of course, you are going to say yes to is the restoration of the court impact fees. So we're going to put that into the model. and that is $1,094,000 a year. And you can see on the screen that that restores a very healthy fund balance. Okay, so we're now
Oh,
up.
I do have one.
Go ahead,
Yes.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the $1 million that we restore, it is showing as revenue for both 2019 and 2020, and it's under the clerk's office and the Superior Court, under those two locations. What I'm wondering about, we've been trying to cover those needs from other areas, but all the revenue is going to show going back into there, but is that where you intend it to go?
No.
Oh, okay,
It's-
that's what,
It's not intended to be spent there.
Okay.
This is an accounting function.
Oh, okay.
The
makes more sense.
office or department that receives money books it, but since it's general fund, it does not,
Okay,
you know, there's not a one-to-one relationship
That-
here
that-
because
that's all
we
I need
did
to know.
cover their
Yeah.
costs.
okay,
Healthy balance.
Okay.
Again, if we stopped right here, it'd be very healthy, but we can't stop here because it's not many requests.
So it is not time to drop the microphone at this
Right,
point.
Not
we
yet,
can't,
no.
we can't drop the mic yet and be done.
Okay,
Nope,
that
we
takes
got,
care
we
of-
got the morning to work.
Robin, just to clarify, sort of as a baseline, I mean, my understanding is that we were really, when you say a very healthy fund balance,
Oh,
we
yes.
would really be shooting in a
Healthier.
perfect world for like $18 million or something like that.
Yes, that's
Based
correct.
on stuff I've heard you say at previous meetings.
16 to 18 million is absolutely
Okay.
where we need to be. We're going to talk about that later too.
Healthier.
But yes,
Yeah.
it's certainly above the $10 million mark. I would also just remind you that in 2018, we made that accrual adjustment for the sales tax that made our ending fund balance look higher than it really is. We don't know the impact of that. We've known for years we needed to carry a fund balance of $10 million to meet cash flow. I don't know if doing that accrual now is going to impact that cash flow need. We'll know in October this year. So I would be very cautious about getting down to the $10 million mark at this point in time. But we're above that now, so you have a little bit of room here if you should choose to spend this money. So the next item on the sheet is in the past few months, I have heard the board make certain commitments. So here are the items that I think that you've made commitments to. Now, I may have misinterpreted that, so this does not
this is
lock you in.
2019 Amendment
But
1.
this is
that you're gonna-
Amendment 1.
Okay.
So the first item is the clerk. We actually put into the 2019 budget that if the court impact fees are restored, that you would take the end dates off these two positions that are transferred out of the family court fund into the general fund. So that's the first item here.
And the dollar amount is?
$52,000, $52,033 in 2019. That's for half the year. And 107,000 roughly for future years.
Okay.
The next item on this list,
And that becomes a baseline for future years.
Yeah.
It's not just a 2-year action that you're taking, that
These-
becomes the
That'll just be
baseline for the
built in.
person.
Yep.
Okay?
Right.
these are not one-time items. None of these are. So the next item is, you will recall Superior Court came to you maybe 2 months ago. They had discovered that jury trial services and interpreter services were overspent. They thought they had the money, but going to the direct appropriation method of accounting they discovered that what they'd really been doing was eating into money that was intended for treatment sales tax. The board made something of a commitment to fund these two items that are crucial for the court. So that's $50,000 increase per year for the jury trial services, thank you, and $45,000 per year for Superior Court for interpretive services. District Court is also experiencing a need for interpretive services.
Okay. Interpretive services, is that just for during trials or something? I mean, we have an interpreter come in, is that what you're referring to? Okay, good enough.
Interview, anything.
Okay,
any
okay,
of
good.
that.
Okay, good enough.
Yep. And then the other thing that you have committed to is $5,000. That is the county's half of the maintenance costs of the restroom at the Boston Harbor Boat Launch.
And the game department's got the other half, right?
Yep.
That is my
Yep,
understanding.
okay.
So the total commitments, if you will, $162,000 in 2019, $217,000 in 2020. Do those sound about right
Yes.
to all of you?
They do.
Do
Yeah.
we hear, do I see some thumbs up for now?
I guess. Yeah.
Yep, okay. Then we're gonna lay in that amount into the model, 162, 33 in the first year and 217,
Now, the folks at home don't see this on the screen, do they?
89 in year two.
No,
they
I
don't.
don't
No, they
think
don't.
they do.
Eventually, if they're interested, where would they find it?
Because this is
A work in progress.
a work
it's
in
not there yet.
progress, is an interactive model, so it will be difficult to capture what.
At some point, it'll be there.
Yeah.
But
It'll be done.
if they're real interested, they come to the work session.
Yeah.
They're invited, right?
And also,
Absolutely.
this will be, your decisions that you make will be published
Right.
for the public to see
Okay.
what you're going to be approving.
Thank you.
in
So
your
once it's
upcoming
done,
board.
it'll be posted.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, the next group of
And
items. Oh,
this is
go
really
ahead.
the record. The video that we have right now is the record of your conversation and decisions.
Okay,
And thumbs.
Right?
Yeah.
okay.
All right. The next group of items are grants. Prosecuting attorney, sheriff, both law enforcement, corrections, emergency management, and community planning are all receiving unanticipated grants. And what you see is that the revenue and the expenditures are exactly the same in both years and have no impact on the fund balance. And if we're going to accept these grants, we must spend them as the grantor requires.
Yeah,
So
It's all
I
in
would
and out.
recommend that we say yes to all of these.
yeah. You need thumbs up or something? Is that what you need? Or?
Go ahead, Ty.
I don't want to take this conversation off track because I know we have a ton of items, but I still had lingering questions about the SCAP grant and what it's for. And so at a later time, I'd like to dig a little deeper into that so I understand what we're doing there.
So what we're doing there is the federal government, I'll give you a short explanation, and we'll invite someone from the sheriff's office to meet with you, but the short explanation is the sheriff will hold people in the jail for cause.
For local cause.
Yeah, local cause, not because they're undocumented aliens, but those people who have been, and I think it's after they've been convicted, we count up the bed nights and the federal government reimburses us. So these are people who have committed a crime, they're going through the process, they're not just being held, they're certainly not on an ICE hold.
Why are they giving us that money for if they did something locally?
It's just federal funding that we're entitled to that the Department of Justice pays. It's
Like just
It's a
reimbursement.
federal award, yeah. I mean, we could say no to the money, we'd still have the cost.
Well, no, if that's, as long as it's, my only concern is there was, there were situations where when a local law enforcement sentence was up, but there was an over, then there was,
Right.
then you could hold somebody for a few days, which is arguably not constitutional.
Correct, and we are not
And I
doing
can
that.
understand why the federal government would want to pay for that. I couldn't understand why they'd want to pay us for the incarceration that we'd be doing anyway, because that person committed a crime in our community. If they want to pay us for that, that's okay.
That's exactly right. Yes, so we take the money every year.
All right.
And that money is then used on equipment. So it's,
Yeah, substantial money, too.
You're saying overtime this year.
they're going to use it on overtime this year?
They've had the money since 1999.
Yeah.
Perhaps they'll use
We've
for
been receiving this
enforcing the
for many
fireworks,
years.
Okay,
fireworks goals.
Okay.
so we're thumbs upping on that group? Is that what we're doing?
Grants,
The
I
grants?
mean, there's no impact on the general fund
Thumbs up or
balance
down?
because we only spend what we receive. So we'll
That was
enter
fast.
those. 65,034.
Oh, good, it's not front and back.
And grants 105,845. All right, and we are still got a projected ending fund balance of 2019 of just under 12 million, and in 2020, just over 12 million. So we're above the 10. The next set of items, starting at the top of page 2, these are what I'm calling technical adjustments. So the first item is revenue into the general fund that should have been booked last year, but it's coming in this year for a variety of reasons. It just wasn't done, so it's technical. The next few items are copiers that are being obtained by juvenile court, prosecuting attorney, and sheriff corrections. There's a accounting rule where you have to adjust for the value of the machine when you lease it. You've got to book the full value. It has no impact on the general fund. It's technical. The item about the transfer of employee parking lot revenue, we had been booking that in the general fund. It really ought to be going into the building reserve fund, so this is just $14,000 in revenue that we will no longer book in the general fund. It's technical. $134,000 expenditure from non-departmental. I'm on the line that starts with 33 A1 2303. This is a transfer to the Emergency Management Council Fund of money that is accumulated in the general fund that cannot be used for general purposes. It must be used for emergency purposes. We need to get this money out of the general fund where it belongs. So it is a transfer, but it's a technical adjustment.
That's that 134,000?
Yep. It's money that's accumulated over many years.
But
in the
did we
general
get
fund.
the trailer they needed out there?
Yeah, that's that trailer we looked at
Oh,
that day we
okay,
were there.
that's-
Yep,
that's right.
related to the trailer, and so is the next line
Oh, okay.
item. The emergency management had planned on spending that money out of the general fund. They will now spend the money out of the Emergency Management Council Fund. So you see a reduction in expenditures that is related.
And that's to purchase an additional trailer.
Yep,
Okay.
they're gonna buy the trailer.
Okay.
The next items, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, are technical adjustments related to the direct appropriation of treatment sales tax. We have taken some time to figure out how to account for the interfund rates, and we're making this adjustment now. Overall, it's a reduction in the general fund. You'll see a corresponding increase in treatment sales tax. But the bottom line of technical adjustments is actually positive to the general fund.
Yeah.
So these are all just little things that we need to do. Mainly accounting changes.
And it looks like the public defense was able to find some more stuff that could be attributed to the TST.
So what this is we calculated how we're attributing indirect costs, and recall that fair and equitable distribution to the funds that cause the expense. We had been charging these to the general fund. They're really chargeable to treatment sales tax. So we're shifting the cost out of the general fund to the treatment sales tax. It's not an increase in expenditures. It's just a more appropriate allocation of the full cost of the activity.
And it takes a little pressure off the general fund.
It does.
A little
Yeah.
pressure.
So there's a bonus too.
Yeah. Okay.
Questions about those?
I'm good with
Oh,
those.
okay.
Are you okay as a
Oh,
group?
thumbs up?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to take a moment and enter these numbers. Someday I'll figure out a magic way to make them enter as we go, but so far it takes a moment.
This organization is helping a lot. Let me just say,
Good.
versus the,
Yes?
Yeah.
Oh, you bet it does. Yeah, this is a huge, huge
I
benefit.
mean, all the information was there, but it was just all chopped up.
Yeah, I tried to think of a way that it might make a little more sense so that there's a lot less that you can see that you've got to grapple
Well,
with,
thank
if
you
you
very
will,
much.
and it'll get there. The easy part is coming to an end.
Yeah. But just having all the other things in one place helps a lot, because it's easier to compare
Right.
things.
So we are down to what I'm calling the additional items, and I have put them into 3 groupings because you cannot afford the full 2 million more in spending that's been requested. And I could enter the full amount on this model to show you how much damage it would do to the general fund, but to suffice it to say that you would be well under the 10 million mark in the very first year. So you do need to make some choices now. The first group is from the sheriff for both law enforcement and correction, and I've recommended that you consider delaying these items to amendment number 2. These are the costs of overtime and contract increases, including housing for inmates. And the reason that I'm recommending delay is every year the sheriff comes in the first year with a very narrow view saying I'm overspending on these specific line items without taking into consideration the budget he has for his entire organization. And what we found is that by the end of the year, the amount that's necessary to fill the gap, if you will, is much less than he comes in within the First Amendment. So I would recommend to you that we look again at the end of the year, see how the sheriff is doing, with the understanding with the sheriff that he will attempt to manage costs to the best of his ability, and I think he does that. But he not take action on these items at this time.
Now, but you phrased that or painted the picture that he's using a very narrow view. So is it a narrow view, or it's premature, or is it a strategy?
I would not.
You'd rather not answer, okay?
I would agree that it's premature and a narrow view. I would
Okay.
not. I'm not in a position to assume
That's fair.
if
That's
it's
fair.
a strategy.
Okay, maybe I have a question then. Is this, as we wait, because we really don't know what things like out-of-county bed space, rental, first look, what that's giving us, 365 days or more, that number is down to, I don't know, 6 or something, you know, where it was at 40 or something like that.
Right.
So
That is
all of
exactly-
those things are playing in, and that's why you're saying, let's wait until we see a more realistic picture. Is that
That's
it?
exactly right, because these numbers, specifically for the housing, are based on a 3 prior year average. And those were high years. And
Right.
with the efforts being made by the sheriff, the prosecutor, public defense, and the courts, these numbers might be less this year.
And so we're not saying no, we're just saying we got to wait and see what the real picture
Right.
looks like.
Right.
Okay. Good enough.
It's similar to overtime requests.
Sure.
And the board funded 7 new positions last year for corrections. And I think it will be just prudent to see how that has an effect on overtime, expenditures by the end of the year. Are you okay with this recommendation to
To delay it to
delay
amendment.
Is it a
So-
thumb
Second
down?
amendment.
Is there a thumb
No, the
up?
recommendations
To
for each
delay
of
it?
the-
I mean, just to wait,
recommendation
right?
is to delay until the
Second
second
amendment.
amendment of the
And
year.
and are we
The end of the
going,
year.
as we do this, are we going all the way to that 2 million mark or something, which is that what is that what we're doing the thumbs up or thumbs down on?
I'm asking if you are comfortable with not funding 1.7 million in 2019 and 1.5
yeah.
million in
Oh,
2020.
okay, so that's that block.
At this
Right.
time.
That's
that
Right,
block.
I'm only
Okay.
asking you to address
That's the
this
delay.
block right now.
Okay, got it. Okay.
You're okay with
I'm
the
okay
delay?
not
Okay with it.
funding
Okay,
until
good.
later June.
Commissioner Hutchins?
Yes,
All right.
yes, delay.
So the next item at the top of page 3 are new positions. 3 requests from the sheriff came for brand-new position funding. You're aware of all of them. The first is the sheriff is requesting a legal assistant for firearms reviews. The second is a legal assistant for the records section, and you've discussed that with both the sheriff and the prosecutor. And the third item are the 5 corrections positions in accordance with the staffing study. You will recall, the staffing study had some options. The board went with the lowest option. The sheriff would have liked the next option up. So he has asked for these 5 positions in the biennial budget. The board declined to fund them then. He's come back and asked for them again.
The reason the board declined to fund those positions was predicated on how the flex unit will play a role, and at that point you will address holistically the operations of the entire jail.
And for, I can lay it off on you, for Ty's information, and remind me, what was the option that we chose over the option that the sheriff asked for, the next option up? 7
FTEs were funded,
Last year.
Okay,
right?
and he's asking for 6 more, oh,
He's
5 more?
asking for the 5 more.
5 more, 5 more.
And what the Voorhees study said was, if the sheriff organizes in this fashion, he needs 7 FTEs. If he organized in this other way, he needs 12. The board said, we'll fund 7. The sheriff said, I want 12. And
Okay,
that's
so we gave him 7, I was
where-
looking for 5 more.
Yes.
Okay,
kind of where we've left it.
go ahead.
And this, the 44,000 under,
For the firearms?
yep,
For
that
half a
one,
year.
that's strictly an unfunded mandate. Now,
correct.
where are we on funding unfunded mandates? I thought there was some new Something new about we weren't supposed to be getting unfunded mandates from the legislature. Whatever happened to
Well,
that?
find that. I don't remember that.
What happened to it?
That never happened. I think it was an attempt, a bill that you may recall, but that
Wasac, right?
never went
Yeah.
anywhere.
It was on the
was
Wasac
Wasac.
legislative
legislative
agenda.
agenda.
And also on the WASAC, I think legal perspective, they're planning to take actions coming up against the state on those overall unfunded mandates. And as you may recall earlier, the conversation, the definition on the state statute of unfunded mandates becomes very tasking and very difficult to define what that is.
Well,
And that is, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, you finish.
And that is
Go ahead.
why the bill that it was proposed to address unfunded mandates didn't go anywhere, because the definition was.
And it is unfunded and underfunded mandates. Because we get some funds for some mandates, but they're well underfunded.
Okay. My question on the next one, on the legal assistant to records, what was the outcome of that discussion that we decided with the prosecuting attorney and the sheriff as to how to address that?
So the sheriff's office, by far, is the office who processes a lot of public records. That is a fact. That is factual, and that was provided to you when the prosecuting attorney's office came. I think the question is whether the sheriff's office was treating a little bit differently than any other offices and departments related to the public records unit. But you heard that perhaps there was not a change as to how they provide support to the sheriff's office in terms of the public records unit, because the public records unit was not defined or approved to process every single one. It provided an oversight as to how we as a county respond consistently to all the public records. There is still individuals within the individual offices and departments who have to produce those documents because they are the owners. They have the knowledge of those documents. That has not changed. It's just the oversight that has changed, because has provided value and reduced risk to the county. Follow to that briefing, you receive an email with a specific time as to how much the public records unit has supported the sheriff's office. And based on my assessment of that, it is a par with the support that they provide, the public records units provide to the sheriff's, to all the offices and departments. So that is really what
You have a question?
the story. Have any questions? Yeah.
I do. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to make the point that,
You have some more.
when I was considering this one, the sheriffs get the most records requests. They've always gotten the most records requests. That's the nature of it.
Right.
So the question is, their beef about how the prosecutor is supporting them really doesn't have anything to do with their processing time. They might have thought that some load was going to be taken off them, but that wasn't really true for all the reasons Ramiro just said. I guess I went back to the sheriff's letter to try to figure out what exactly is he arguing, and there's a sentence in it, and I pointed out to Ramiro, there's a sentence where he says, due to changes in the law, just the overall volume, there have been legal changes in last year or two that have greatly increased the overall volume of public records requests across the board, and because we bear the highest proportion of that, 75%, it's starting to out-tax our staffing. To me, that's the argument. The argument really isn't about, the prosecuting attorney and the support level. That's not really it. The question is, can they just keep up with the rising volume? And is that true? Is there a rising volume of records requests? And if it is true, can they keep up with it?
So the only, what I know about changes in the law of public records in the last 2 years is related to reporting requirements. Let me take you back when in 2017, I've been 16, when something is be careful what you wish for, because all the local jurisdictions were clamoring to the legislature to provide some relief as to how much it's costing us to provide public records. As a result of that, the legislature passed a bill stating allowing local jurisdictions to charge 10 cents per every gigabyte that we submit So, but just going through the process, and you were part of the decision-making process, going through the process of how we're going to be managed is the 10 cents would have cost us a lot more money. So the county at that point decided not to implement that fee. But also within the legislative action, it imposed to all the local jurisdictions to provide a report on a yearly basis as to how many public records we produce.
Yeah.
The Public Records Unit manages that report in coordination with me, but all the offices and departments provide that feedback to the main report. That's the only law that I know of that has changed in the last couple of years related to the public records.
That was going to be my question, what law changed? I remember that discussion
That's
vividly.
the only one that I know, but obviously I'm not. Yeah, that's the only one that we were tracking. I am not aware of any other law related to this.
Should we go ahead? Did you have more on,
Well,
on that?
if we're kind of talking about these three together, I guess the one that concerns me the most is the firearm checks, and I'd be curious what my seatmates and what you guys think about that. To me, that is definitely was imposed externally, and I certainly don't want, guns going out in the community without appropriate background checks, and so that's one where I think for me it falls into a different category. Unless somebody can talk me out of that, that's my inclination, is to support that.
And I don't think I'll talk you out of it, but I want to go back to the public records. If we approve the request for the record section, legal assistant, what workload-wise, how will that impact the prosecutor? I would think it would lighten some of the prosecutor's load, not much at all, or no impact?
No impact.
Not at all.
Not at all, okay. We want to make sure there's no tie there, otherwise we'd be taking funds from the prosecutor and giving it to the sheriff for the same deal, okay.
So I would just also note, as you consider these positions, that a budget amendment, the instructions are very clear that this is not an opportunity to ask for new positions to be funded. That should have come with the biennial budget request. Even the midterm is limited, but it's a more appropriate opportunity. Other offices and departments know that this is not the time to ask for new positions, and yet you have these in front of you from the sheriff. The only one of these that I would say is truly potentially a new thing is the firearms, because there was a bill passed.
Last November.
Initiative.
Right, an
And it goes into
initiative.
effect in
Right.
July, right?
That I believe is correct. Other than that, these should not have come forward at this time in accordance with our budget instructions.
Go ahead, Gary.
For me, the unfunded mandate for the firearm check, it does nothing to make our community safer, even if implemented. So I'm not in favor of moving forward with that funding. It's feel-good legislation that really doesn't solve any problems. I've got a lot of experience in a lawman end of things, and I find that the criminal element never goes along with what the law is or follows the law anyway. So I'm not interested in that one. And I realize we've already done some funding on the corrections end of things. I am concerned about that $44,000, about hiring that person because of the liability exposure that the county incurs on not attaining the proper records and release of such records to the public. And that's kind of real. Not saying that all the other stuff isn't real to a degree, but it's not real in the same sense to me. So I'm more inclined to fund the records end of things, but I do question in today's market, I guess this is for a half a year and then a year under 2020. And the reality is, I don't know if they can even get somebody hired with the market as it exists today within that period of time. So I think if we gave the $44,000 on that particular section for the record section, I don't think it'd be utilized there in the end, but maybe by next year.
So in that case, I would encourage you to delay this to the midterm when you could weigh it against other needs that the county would bring forward.
You're talking about the record section only.
I'm talking about any of these items.
But my concern is, I agree with Commissioner Edwards that the firearms initiative that takes effect month after next is a feel-good, and it's not going to enhance anybody's safety. I don't believe it will. But it's still a mandate, it's still a law, and we're going to still have to have it funded. It's going to be an impact, negative impact on the sheriff's office. So I'm in favor of funding that one. But the records request and the other ones, if those are new positions, that can wait till mid-year. That when typically new positions come up, that's where my head is at right now.
I agree.
Yes, sir.
As Robin has stated, the only one who really falls outside of the budget instructions, at least from our point of view, is the firearms. And I'm not here to have, from my point of view, a conversation with the effectiveness of the new initiative or not. I'm looking from the workload point of view that has imposed to the sheriff's office, and perhaps the risk the county may have, because there is a time limited as to when the sheriff's office needs to conduct the background checks. If that is not provided on a timely matter, then those applications will move through it without the background check. They could have a risk to the county. That's the only, from my point of view, that's really the only element or the only line item in this group that perhaps you may consider.
And that's how I view it. Because should there be any misstep with that, it's going to come back to funding and who made the decision to be us, the county.
What the sheriff's letter educated me about, which was shocking, was that for every 100 pistols sold, there's 125 semi-automatic assault weapons, which are the kind used in school shootings and everything else. And if there's any possibility that we're not following the law and doing proper background checks on those types of weapons, I'm very concerned for the community safety. So I'm inclined to fund that piece, because it couldn't have been something the sheriff necessarily saw, the volume and the responsibility that was going to be placed on his office.
That was
Right.
statewide, put on law enforcement's back.
So at this point, since you've debated all three of these now, I'm going to ask one by one for a yes funded or not at this time, knowing that the sheriff, if you don't fund it, the sheriff will come again in the midterm with the request.
Before we vote, because the midterm is going to be at the end of the year,
The midterm will be adopted in October.
October. And in the meantime, the public records, where there's huge liability, that is a new position. And can we afford, and I don't mean monetarily, can we afford to put that off until we approve it in October, which then takes them 4 to 6 months to find someone and hire them and train them?
That is the choice that
you make.
is up to you
Yeah, you can
to
have it.
consider. So I'm
Okay.
going to go one by one now. The legal assistant for the firearms section, yes or no? I see 2 yeses. Then legal assistant for the records section, yes or no? I see 2 thumbs up. The 5 correction positions for corrections, yes, I see 3 noes. Okay, so we're going to enter these positions into the model. 44. And
How it's supposed to work.
92, 92.
I guess while you're entering that, I have just maybe a technical question. If the court says something about this firearms thing being unconstitutional, I don't know if they will or won't, but
Well,
if
that's a
they
good question.
make it null or void, what happens then with that? Is it contingent on the court upholding that piece of legislation passed by the state? Or does it
not
go
aware.
away? Do we get it back? You can't lay that person off if you've hired them, so what is the headache that goes along with that?
The only option that you could probably have, that I, at this point, reacting to your question, Commissioner, will be to put a budget proviso creating this position, but that not necessarily, it's just provided proviso that you have to revisit perhaps every year during your budget process. Similar to the budget proviso that you created a position with the Sheriff's Office with the North Thurston School District as a resource officer. That was a budget proviso predicated the revenue, and that position is contingent to have that revenue from the North Thurston School District, no general fund. I don't know any other option, perhaps, Commissioner, but
If we didn't fund the records position, we could have just slid them over to work on the public records. You guys have followed my lead there.
I guess we did put some provisos in our last budget debate about the clerk's office. If the funding was granted by the legislature or not, we would extend or not, or, put a stop to the sunsetting or.
Right.
So, I don't know, I just bring it up as an issue that I want the sheriff to have the ability to do the right thing, but.
Yeah, that's a very good question, though.
That's a good point, yeah.
It's a very good point. If it gets overturned,
What do we do?
then what do we do with that individual?
But I'm sure the sheriff can put him to work on that records thing probably. even,
Or
so,
something else?
Because there's going to be a
Probably.
lot of requests coming. That's,
Give him or her a uniform.
yeah.
So now you put those in the model already?
Yep, those are now in. And you see that we're running just under $12 million per year.
Okay.
So it was not a big hit.
Okay.
All right. So the last set of items were random items that I really had no way to group. So we'll walk through those one by one with a yay or nay. The first item is the cost for the auditor to hire an actuary to estimate post-employment costs in accordance with new rules from the Government Accounting Standards Board. $15,000 in the first year, $3,000 in the second year. The $3,000 would be an ongoing cost in the base. I am suggesting to you, based on information in the auditor's financial plan, that they could absorb the cost.
The 15 and the 3.
The 15 and the 3. I believe the auditor could absorb.
Okay, I'm good with it.
All right, so.
thumbs up on that recommendation?
Thumbs up
thumbs
to
up?
absorb.
To
absorb.
absorb.
That they
absorb.
absorb.
Which is
Yeah,
deny
it's
the
down on
request.
funding,
That's
right?
a
So-
denial.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Did you vote yet?
I'm still thinking on that one. Can we come back to it?
Sure.
Okay.
Or do you want more discussion, or you just want to think about it?
Maybe, Michelle, could you bring up their financial plan and tell us how much they intend to be underspent?
Since we had a majority of the board
I'm
to.
sorry, how
Oh, I
much?
see.
Yeah, you
Five
can call me
hundred
and
dollars.
abstain.
I will ask
That's fine, since
I
you
will
got
ask
two.
the board to see if you consider delaying the decision, because you already is the majority.
I'm not asking for additional time. You can just,
But
So we got the financial plan and they're anticipating to underspend 500,000 across their
Okay,
offices.
so that gives us the
15,000 out of that.
they could absolutely
okay,
absorb this
all right.
cost.
Okay,
Absorb.
okay.
Okay. The next item is from Superior Court. Oh, actually, the next 3 items are similar. Superior Court, District Court, and the prosecuting attorney all have increases in salaries based on recent actions of the Washington State Salary Commission. So judges' salaries are increased. The Superior Court costs are $47,000. This is the county share. $47,000 in 2019 and $140,000 in 2020 and ongoing. District Court, $36,000 in 2019, $96,000 in future years. And then the prosecuting attorney is a very odd calculation because the state of Washington pays half the cost of a judge's salary, a Superior Court judge's salary, to the county for the prosecutor. So the state of Washington pays half of a judge's salary regardless of how much the prosecutor's salary is. And then the county sets the county half of the prosecutor's salary. So we've done some research on this, and what we found is in the past, and this is the way your salary resolution was written, is that the board authorizes the county half of the prosecutor's salary in accordance with the county's salary commission.
Commission recommendations.
And then however much the state is going to pay, we set that half of his salary according to what the state pays. So what I am recommending here, these calculations are what the state will pay plus the benefits that are driven on that. It is not increasing both halves, if you will, of the prosecutor's salary. And I know that's weird and complicated, and it took us quite a while to work through it.
Very convoluted.
It is quite
Yeah.
convoluted, but what I am recommending to you is that we take the state's money and raise his salary accordingly, because the state is going to cover the salary costs.
Yeah.
I would also say on the other two, in the past, the board has told the courts that they have to absorb this. But what I've been told by HR this year is it's never been this much money. It's always been a much, much lower amount that they've had to absorb.
But what is the reality of their ending fund balance that they could or couldn't, though?
So I
They
have
have provided
not
their-
seen their
Superior
financial
Court's not done
plans.
their financial plans.
Well, what's traditionally, I mean, and they're going to get an influx somehow from what the legislature gave us this year. So I'm just curious.
The impact fees aren't necessarily gonna go to them.
No, they don't.
Well,
go
no,
to-
I know
they
it's not
your
going to go
fund
to them,
balance.
but still, they're going to be getting something to cover some of the costs that it's going to take pressure off of elsewhere where we've been
That's right.
stealing Peter to pay
They
Paul or
have-
whatever you call it.
Superior Court, we asked if they could just absorb the cost of these vests, and they said no. So if we were to ask the court, they would say that they cannot absorb any of these things. I would not necessarily agree with that, but I would say, especially in 2020,
Well,
that's the cost of an FTE.
I mean, we just got
That's
done
pretty
saying the
insane.
auditor could absorb 18,000 or whatever their amount is. Is it and they've got a $500,000 ending fund balance or something like that.
Right.
Okay, so what's the ending fund balance for the Superior Court?
They
haven't
They
submitted.
haven't submitted that yet.
Well, no, but I mean, traditionally, what has it been?
The
I mean,
history, yeah, or
what's the
reversion.
history of it or something?
Yeah,
Or what they
they've,
reverse.
so in the past, they've
Oh.
spent money that was intended for TST that's no longer available to them. That's what's been reverted, is something left from TST after, and not as much as it should have been.
And this is significantly more than history has given
This
for an
is, it
increase.
really is.
Okay.
So this is the sum, this represents the sum total of tweaks to all the Superior Court judges?
In the court
Yes.
commissioners.
Okay.
And the commissioners, yes.
Although
And the prosecutor.
the court commissioners are not state mandated. It's just they like to keep, I think, as 80%.
Keep it even.
80% of the judges' salaries.
Just so they
Suppression
get
rate,
good
yeah.
folks to come sit on the bench, right?
Similar to district court
Okay.
commissioners, yeah.
And the 52,000 for the vests, is, that's
6,200?
lumped in there.
That's
Oh,
different.
no, we'll get to that
That's
line.
all.
Right now, I'm only asking you to look at Superior Court, District
District Court
Court,
and prosecutor?
and prosecutor salaries.
Okay.
So perhaps the
Superior
options,
Court.
the options the board has is not funding this request, fully funded request, or something in the middle.
Right.
So you're not bound on yes or no. You have the option to land somewhere in the middle as well.
Okay, when we've asked them to absorb it in the past, you know, apparently this is unusual, the amount of an increase. By twice as much, half as much, what's the deal? I mean,
3 to 4 times as much.
Oh,
It's a significantly
which,
higher jump than what our HR staff say they've ever seen in the
Wow.
past.
well, so if we gave them half, for an example, that would take the sting out of it, and they might be able to absorb, like the auditor's office is absorbing a piece.
well, but I'm hearing that they overspend at the end of the year consistently.
Considering that the next decision in here is the district court judges.
Right.
It's the same, lesser amount, but it's the same principle.
Right.
Did I understand you to say that, or be arguing that there's a reason to treat the prosecutor differently than the two judge categories?
Yes, because it comes with revenue.
Okay.
And it's highlighted in here.
Well, doesn't the Superior Court wage come with revenue as well?
No, the state pays their half, this is the county's half.
Yeah, but I mean,
And
it
what I'm
does come with
suggesting
revenue.
is that the county not increase the county's share that the prosecutor receives. We don't do that. We only increase his state share that's paid.
So let's do the Superior Court and District Court. You want to do them separately? I don't know if we have,
You can do them separately, so
What
what
is-
is your
I don't know if there's
pleasure?
disagreement.
Well, can you put it into the model?
At the full amount?
Yeah,
Sure.
for both?
Just the
I don't think
court,
we can
yeah.
treat them differently.
I don't either.
I don't think.
I would
that-
agree.
That will not be a good approach.
Would not be
Commissioner.
well received.
Yeah, I think you treat them all equally.
Okay, so it's just gonna take me a minute to add these. And then this one is. So that still puts you at, the ending fund balance in 2020 of $11.7 million roughly.
Still just under 12.
Which is where it is.
Right. Because you've got revenue coming in from that court impact fee that is not reflected in your,
But at that point, so that revenue comes in, but with this expenditure, we've now then spent enough to where we have not improved our financial position.
true.
That's the point, yeah.
That is exactly where we're at.
Okay.
There's still items on the list.
Yes,
And there's
there's
still-
still a few things
Go
left.
ahead, Gary.
What is the amount that we told them to absorb in the past? Like a quarter of what we're talking about right now?
I would have to
I mean,
look
just
to be
roughly. I
positive.
mean, just
It's-
roughly.
I look at so
So,
many numbers, I could not tell you.
If we gave them 3/4 of the request, would that cover it? I'm just trying to save a few dollars here and there
So,
is all.
because I have
Appreciate it.
not seen their financial
So
plan.
that's appreciated.
And what their projections are, and because they have adamantly said that they cannot absorb anything, I hesitate to tell you, I think they could absorb X much. I don't have a good sense for that today. And I apologize for that. I like to come a little more prepared, but we just don't have that information yet.
Okay, well, just for the sake of simplicity, I'd be a thumbs up for 3/4 of the request.
So you want to go line by line?
And
ready?
also you have another opportunity to reconcile at the end of the year. So you're not bound for those decisions right now, because you will have another opportunity at the end of the year to go through where they are, every single office and department.
And what is fleshed out that thought? You mean if we agree to fund these salaries, you're saying there's some, what are you saying exactly about
No,
reconciling?
if
at the
you
end of the
decided
year?
not to,
Oh, saying not to.
if you decide not to a lesser amount, or not, then what you do is you ask him to absorb a portion of that during this year.
You're providing an opportunity for them to find a way to absorb, which if they can't, and you see it in October.
Correct.
Yeah. We could delay these.
Okay, so then would we be less work on staff if we delayed the whole thing rather than tried to figure out a way to make it 3/4 of it funded and a quarter
Yes,
not?
or-
yes, it would be a lot less work on staff
Yeah.
if we did that.
But by the same token, when we're trying to reconcile this at the end of the year, we're reconciling a whole bunch of other stuff at the end of the year, and it's a big bite when we look at the ending fund balance at that point too.
It is.
So it's either done and dusted, get
right.
it done, or it's a big headache at the end of the year with everybody else's reconciliation.
How about this?
Wait.
Right now, in the model, the full amount is in. Oh, do you have additional information?
So I pulled Munis, okay, all expenditures, which is general fund. Their budget's $5.5 million.
Right,
It's down from last year. It was 5 point,
from the
or
TST,
6.1, right?
right?
And they've spent 2.1 million. So they've spent 38% of the annual cost. And we're 5 months in.
5, almost half.
So I don't know if there's big lumps coming in. I mean,
But there's
they're-
also a payroll lag that's not
Right.
accounted for there.
So they might be like. regular,
Right on the
you know?
line.
Without getting information from them, it's a little hard.
Well, regardless, I guess, just for the sake of making it simple for staff, I'm gonna give a delay until later on because we're gonna be going over a whole bunch of this stuff in October anyway.
Because in October, you'll also get information on the revenues. Because
Yeah.
right now, it's all projections. So in October, Robin will bring with a little more actual information.
Okay.
They will give you not just a decision point on individual items, it's more holistic in terms
Right.
of the budget decisions they need to make.
So I will say that I took a look at sales tax, which is the most volatile item. And it is tracking exactly where we thought it would be. Excuse me, if anything, we're gonna be dead on what we budgeted for sales tax, if not slightly under
Okay.
at this rate. So I don't think we're gonna have a big bonus there.
And they're receiving their pay, we're not holding their pay up, they're getting it. Just a matter of how to absorb it, or pay
Right.
for it rather.
So let's do this.
Budget-wise.
For right now, I have it in the model. Let's figure out what other items you want to fund and where that puts
They will
us.
come back.
And come back to this one,
Okay.
okay? All right.
So we're down to vests.
The next item is the vests for Superior Court. They've asked for 9 protective vests. And then the sheriff has purchased already SWAT vest replacements,
Can we do
and
the,
is asking for money
Yeah.
because he spent what he didn't
but they're
have.
two different issues.
They are two different issues, yes, they are.
So for Superior Court, the $6,288 for vest, I'm ready to vote. Or give you a thumb rather.
I am too.
I had a note just from our previous conversation that this same request was made in the fall and the board didn't fund it.
The sheriff?
Yeah.
Oh,
We'll
it's for
get
the
to that
sheriff.
one. I just want to
So
bang out the
let's
vest
do,
one.
yeah, we're
first
suggesting
one. The court
Superior
vests?
Court first,
For the
Superior
first
Court
line
for the
screeners.
security guards. I would say we could buy these out of ER&R and not the general fund.
Right. And remember that you're not making a decision on the value of the request. That's
Right.
That you're not making a decision whether it's a value to add vests to the security officers. Is the decision to make is whether you want to fund them.
Well,
I
I
asked why
want
the-
safety for our officers.
Well, I asked why this was a budget amendment issue. Why wasn't this in the budget? And
That's an excellent
the
question.
judge
Yep.
said that's an excellent question. I'll try to get you an answer, and I haven't seen the answer. So,
Okay.
It was muddled in with a bunch of stuff that the board chose not to.
Because if you may remember, the court submitted a model, what they want to have central services at that point provide the security
Right.
services.
Oh.
But the Superior Court wanted to keep those positions, the security positions, to have a more oversight in the
Right.
courts. So,
Got
and that was
So it got
probably,
lost.
it was broader, the request, that it was difficult to parcel that out.
Okay.
Because it had a big ticket item on that request.
Thank you, Michelle, I did not realize that. So apparently it was part of the original budget request and in part
it got
and
lost
got
here.
lost in something bigger.
and
Got
now
lost here.
And now you're saying it could be funded through, what'd you say, ER?
ER&R.
So we save money, what?
9 vests.
And they,
9
and-
vests,
and also,
exactly.
I believe they can absorb that as well.
The 6,200? I think they could probably absorb the cost of the
Okay,
vests.
I'm willing to fund the 6,200.
I am too. I am too.
Okay.
All right, I'm down, but
Okay.
I got 2 ups. Okay, I think I had 2 ups. Then we got the sheriff, who asked for funding.
Need to put that in the model, the 6,200.
Thank you.
Yeah, put that in.
By the way, we're going to
Sorry,
come back.
Don't want to lose track.
No, I appreciate that.
Are we going back to the prosecuting attorney as well as the judges at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe when we go through this group, maybe consider a break and then we'll come back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whoops. All right, the sheriff's vests,
Dun, dun, dun.
$52,000. So here's the story about the sheriff and vests. Not for these SWAT vests, but for regular vests, the sheriff pays into the equipment reserve fund so that when he needs new vests, the money is sitting there to buy them. Apparently, the SWAT vests are not part of that payment into ER&R. He would like to make them part of ER&R, but he asserted the need to purchase these vests at this time, and he did so. He's asking to be paid back for the general fund expenditure, and then what he'd like to do is set up in the future the payment into ER&R so that the cost of these vests is saved up along with all the rest. At one point, I thought we were having a conversation to purchase these vests out of ER&R and
Right.
set up the repayment, but
But
apparently they
went
didn't
ahead
wait.
They went ahead and purchased those.
So we could have had a more elegant solution for him had he been patient.
So as I understand, when we said no last year, then I saw earlier, a month ago, I saw the expenditures for vests. Because he went ahead and bought vests anyway, and now he's coming back and saying, now give me the money for the vests.
Bought them in March.
That's cute, yeah.
my notes from a previous meeting said, not the purpose of a budget amendment. Robin says reject the request.
I would recommend, this
reminding you
is
of what you
not
said.
the purpose. Also, not only the sheriff, every elected official and department director is responsible to manage their budgets within the appropriation that the board approves at the beginning of a year, to purposefully make a purchase when you know you don't have the money is a blatant,
Unique.
yeah.
Go ahead, Gary.
I guess I don't know that I agree with the rationale used for, in that expenditure, but I have to say, when it comes to protecting officers, I'm gonna protect officers where I can. So
I
I'm gonna
have
give you a thumbs up.
no qualms and absolutely agree we should do everything to protect.
As I recall also, this request, it's for replacements, which means the expiration date, law enforcement claims that the vest date has expired. Well, and that came to us before because of expiration, and the expiration doesn't mean they don't work anymore. And I don't know how old these vests are that we're replacing.
There was apparently more to it than just the expiration date.
It was, I think the argument, it was somewhat related to the expiration date, but also the risk associated with that expiration date. It could be the case that those vests continue to work up to the expiration date, but if in the event is some of those fail, hopefully not, then it's that risk the county absorbs.
Well, with sweat,
when a
I get
replacement.
you. With sweat and wear and tear and all that type of stuff, they do wear down. They do over years.
Right.
And the company that makes them guarantees them to a certain date, but they won't guarantee them forever because they have to cut their liability. So they come up with and I don't want to say an artificial date, but they came up with an artificial arbitrary date when the vest expires, which is kind of nice to have fresh vests every 5 or 6 years, whatever, but that doesn't mean they don't work.
They bought them 5 years ago in 2 sizes that fit
There,
most staff.
yeah, there we go.
And then,
Okay.
since then, there's been a design change, so you no longer need 2 different kits. So they wanted to replace them all, so they fit better.
Right, and then they also say, we have
Thank
had
you.
a lot of change in who is on the team and now have several officers where the armor is either too big or too small. This, coupled with the armor having expired, necessitates replacement of the equipment.
Okay, go ahead, Gary.
I guess I would just like to point out that it's not law enforcement that makes the determination that these expiration dates, the dates that show that the quality of the vest expires, it's the industry that does that. And I too think it's a bit artificial, but I'm just not willing to take the chance with all things considered as far as who's wearing what vest, the different size of the individuals and all that. It's an ongoing nightmare to try and keep that figured out. And when it comes to officer safety, I'm going to support the officer's safety. That's all.
I'll just point out that we're not taking any chance because they already bought them and the officers are safe. But to reward,
Right.
But to reward this type of, it was rejected in the fall, and to reward this is going to set a really bad precedent, in my opinion. So I don't
We were
support
also trying to work with the sheriff to find another way to purchase them that wouldn't impact the general fund.
And I'm with you. I won't skimp where I can on officer safety, male or female. I mean, it's a human life. Just like the vest for the security folks. This isn't about the merit of the value of it. What drives me nuts is it was requested and we said no. They're purchased anyway, and now it's give me some money to pay me back, and that annoys me. Unless I can get more information that justifies that, I can't justify that in my head. But they have the vest, yes.
Yes, they do.
So it's a matter of who pays for it now. But he's paid for it out of his budget. He wants the money back in his budget.
Right.
And
And
moving forward, it will be on ER&R, correct? Is that
It's not determined yet.
not determined?
That.
so what we're
I-
saying is that will be on ER&R in the future or not? I'm saying that for the
That is
benefit of people
that's the
watching.
long-term
What
plan.
we'd like to set up.
It's not committed to, but that's where we're trying to go.
Yeah.
And if we go that way, would it,
The new vests last longer, the new vests will last, have a 10-year lifespan.
The
where
plates.
old vests have five.
but if it gets to ER&R, will that be in 2020? Or is that longer down the road?
That would be in 2020 that the payments would begin. I don't know that
Start.
we've built it into the rates yet.
Go ahead.
I guess before we get to that final up or down, I would like to point out that the Thurston County Sheriff's Office has the lowest number of deputy sheriffs per 1,000 population served than any agency in this state. And I think they're solely underfunded. It becomes quite a juggling act for the administration of that operation because it is underfunded. And although I'm not thrilled with the process, I'm still going to support the best.
So are you suggesting we give them bodies?
Yeah, I want to give them bodies too, but you figure out how we got the money. We don't have it yet. But
Well, we were saying philosophy, but if you
Yeah.
want to give them the money for bodies, I mean, if you want, they are underfunded,
Yep.
and they are the lowest staffing-wise in the state. We've been saying that for a few years, and the studies say that.
Yep.
But this isn't about that.
Well, to me, it is about that. So but that's
Okay.
a different topic.
So how would you like to proceed?
I want to give them the vests money.
No, you want to give the money?
Yep.
I say not yet.
So I see 2 thumbs down.
Okay.
The next item.
Wait, I have a question though.
Oh, yes.
You said you were working with him, or you were going to work with him on a different way to come about getting
I thought we
this?
had been working on a plan to obtain the vests.
Through
That
ER&R.
was through ER&R.
Through ENR, okay. I thought you might have another,
No,
another plan.
that was the best.
okay.
The best idea I had, but
How many vests were those? Like 13, or was it 5, 10,
No, it's
Say-
close to
13?
no, more than 30 or something.
13.
13, that's what's sticking in my head. That's what I saw on the voucher list.
So there's,
we could still look at shifting the cost to ER&R
we'll
and
look
take
if
the
that's
pressure
okay.
off the general fund.
If we find a way, we'll take the pressure out of the.
We'll still look to see if we can't not have this cost in the general fund.
Okay. Yeah, okay. That's just, yeah, when I saw that in April or
Right.
May, that's why I came to you and asked you about that, because it made no sense to me. We said no to the vests, and here's the expenditure for 13 vests, a big chunk of dough. How did that happen? So that was exactly what this is I've done it, now reimburse me.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, the next item on the list is the cost of the LEF 1 benefits. They are going up at an alarming rate. We have very few people who are still on LEF 1, but they are getting older and.
How many? 15?
15.
Right. They are aging
Left 1.
and becoming ill.
You
There,
are, aren't you?
one had a hospital stay, one was,
We had 2 that have had significant costs because they needed 24-hour care. And
right.
for reasons, I don't know what's going on, but we've spent, what, $90,000 to date just since
Wow.
January.
And the budgeted amount was,
27.
yeah, we're blowing through it. So that's,
I might point out that's another unfunded mandate from the state.
it is. Yes, it is. So what questions can I answer about that?
what choice? I mean,
There's no
there's
really.
no.
We have to
There's no
pay.
choice, yeah.
I don't
I
think
have to
we've got a
pay.
choice.
I
in
don't
that.
see any real debate on that.
And there's really not an option to say absorb it because there is no.
And I'm on the disability
Non-departmental.
board, and when we get these requests from someone, they have doctor's notes, and you look at the policy, we
You
have
have
to.
to pay them.
Right.
And I
Yeah,
just see the
we
cost
have no
going up
choice.
as health is failing.
All right, so thumbs up, thumbs down, 3 thumbs up. The next item is the Boundary Review Board. Again, I will enter it, yes, thank you, don't let me forget. we get through the last two and we can put them in. Boundary Review Board, costs are increasing with the annexations in Lacey. State law requires that this be paid out of county general fund.
That's nice.
Is this the right time that has to get done, or?
This is, we don't have a choice. They've already spent the contracted amount of 12,000.
And other annexation requests are coming up in the new funding.
I mean, people said there's all these, like, we've done one annexation. I mean, I'm not arguing this, but it's been brought up, like, with all the annexations, like, what annexation? We've done one annexation. Isn't that what the Boundary Review Board does? So in a typical year, they do 0 annexations,
Yes,
and now they've done one?
yes.
So we're over budget?
And one
100%.
complicated one.
But that one took a lot of work because you invoked jurisdiction on that annexation. So it was not necessarily the traditional annexation process, which doesn't cost that much. This last annexation was still working with the city of Lacey.
There were contested annexations in Tumwater last year, right? Or the year before? One of the last years.
See, and that one we went over budget in 2016.
Okay.
Where we ended up having a new local agreement. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't see a way out of this either.
One time, 10,000. Thank you. And then the last item is for the state examiner. This is the state auditor's office comes in and they will take the money if we don't pay it. All right, so let me enter those last 3 items into
Before I go back
model.
to the court,
Yep, we'll enter these before we go back to the court. Let's see. I'm going to add the prosecutor's salary increase. I don't think I have that here.
But that comes with revenue as well.
Yeah, I'll add that too. And then we'll put in the little bit of revenue. 9014. And before you revisit the court salaries, here is where you sit.
And that's with the court salaries in, though, right?
Yes.
and what's the
that?
bottom line?
I can't read the numbers. but I
Yeah.
can see the
So
dollars.
the 2020 ending fund
11.7.
balance, 11,364.
And what's 19? Just
19
under
is
12.
at 11,7,
Just under 12, okay.
right, because it's a much bigger hit to the second year.
And that's with the Superior and District Court.
Yep, at the full amount.
And that dollar amount is?
The dollar amount for Superior Court, 47,000 in 19, 140,000 in 20. For District Court, 36,000 in 19, 96,000 in 20. So should we take a short break and think about if you're, or are you
I'm ready to
ready?
vote.
Let's just go.
Let's just go with this.
Well, we'll go with the vote.
Yep. Are you?
No.
All right, but I've got 2 up. So we've,
Yes to the Superior.
that's yes to the Superior Court at the full amount.
And district.
And District Court, yes, and District Court, and the prosecutor with his revenue. All right. That's
So you,
general
on
fund.
all 3 items, you say no, right?
Well, I'm the delay guy. I wanted to delay it.
Okay.
Delay it.
But I didn't win, so that's the way it is.
All right, that is general fund. Now, I am going to ask for a very short
A break?
break.
All right, let's take 10. It's 10:45. We'll come back in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, we've never finished operating.
we going to go over a capital budget now?
So
Or what?
let's work through the rest of the operating budget, because the capital
Operating
should go
budget,
really
okay.
fast.
Okay.
So we've,
Hold on.
Is this back to our packets, right? Not the,
this is back to the packets. Yeah, I did a
The original one or the one you
special-
gave us this morning?
The
Let's see.
one that's attached to your agenda, we're
Okay.
gonna go back to those now.
Okay.
has there been any changes? Because I made a lot of notes on the.
I,
No,
Okay.
You have the packet, you're good.
Okay,
yeah, if you have it from a prior date.
okay.
Because right here, operating, on the lower right-hand corner,
yep,
Got it.
I've got 3 of those.
Good. Where does the general fund end?
General fund stops
Page
at 45, page 10.
10. All right. So we're starting at the very bottom of page 10. What I'm going to say, though, before we
are
start,
you there?
Yeah, I will be in a moment.
bottom of page 10, operating.
Victim advocate?
So before we jump into these line items, I will say that all of these are either an offsetting entry to the general fund, which makes them, you know, something you've already decided, or they are technical in nature, or, and bottom line, all of these are restricted funds that can only be used in specific ways, and staff have ensured that there is sufficient fund balance in each of these funds to take the action that's being requested here. So unless there is a concern, a specific concern you have, we should be able to go very quickly through this list.
And all the stretch is taken out of this, I take it, right?
All of the, all of the stretch.
And more.
We stretch and stretch. Yeah, it's plenty elastic. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so bottom of page 10, line 46, Victim Advocate Program is a grant coming in, and they just need to be able to spend the grant money. So what we're going to do with this section is I'm going to assume that you are saying yes to these items unless you stop me.
Looks like I already
Okay,
did.
so I'm going to be moving fast.
Yep.
And the assumption is, unless someone says stop or no, it's a yes to all of these, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
So we're
Got
at the
it.
top of page
Here we
11.
go.
Line 47, Victim Advocate Fund is a grant. Line 48, Prosecuting Attorney, again, Victim Advocate Fund, another grant. Line 49, same fund, more, they say that they are increasing their revenue and taking an end date off the FTE. The fund can definitely afford it. Line 50 is the Emergency Management Council. This is the offsetting entry to what you saw in the general fund with the money coming in. And then the next 2 lines are spending that money on the purchase of a trailer.
Two trailers, right?
There,
It will be a total of 2
Two trailers.
yeah.
Yeah.
They have the one that we saw, they're gonna get another. 950,
Okay, I gotta ask you.
okay.
Are they paying 60,000 or 74,000 for the one we saw? Is that what they're trying to
No, that's the
write
one they
that
already
off?
bought.
They've got that one.
I know,
It's paid
but-
for.
I know, but it didn't look like it was worth much to me. I just tried to figure out how they did that.
They have to completely outfit them when they come. So it's my understanding that
Okay.
what's inside the trailer.
That's-
Well,
is
that's
what's
the most
expensive
Kurt's
valuable.
gonna
and,
oversee this, is that
yes,
right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good.
Okay. Line 53 is Superior Court. This is a small amount of treatment sales tax money for the salary. It goes with the salary increase for the judges. Okay, we're at the top of page 12. All of the treatment sales tax lines, well, let's start with 54. Line 54, public defense has determined that there is additional costs that they can charge to the treatment sales tax fund. So
And that
that's what this
alleviated pressure on the general
It does
fund.
alleviate pressure on the general
By
fund.
62, isn't that great?
Then the rest of the items on this page through line 59 are related to that indirect costs that are going to be charged to TST instead of the general fund. So it's related to what you've already said yes to.
Okay.
Page 13, line 60, we start with the roads. That is the Boston Harbor Boat Launch Restroom. This is the 10,000, 5,000 coming from general fund, the other 5,000 coming from Fish and Wildlife. Line 61 is the Parks Impact Fee Study coming out of the road fund.
I tell you what, I just have to ask about the general fund for the $5,000.
Yes?
How come that isn't coming from REIT for that $5,000
Because
instead of out of general fund?
it's a maintenance cost, it can't be paid by REIT. REIT is for construction.
Okay, good.
Line 61 is the Parks Impact Fee Study. The $16,000 is going to come from where?
The parks impact.
Parks
fees.
Impact Fees, thank you.
And I have a
And
question
the,
after
and
that.
the next line is the.
Oh, I see
expenditure
the offsetting, yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Yes, you have a question about that?
Well, I have a question mark on it when we discussed this a couple weeks ago. I think it's been a couple weeks. And I don't know why. About the
Because there was
16
some
too?
math issues.
Is that what it was?
In the detail, they had 10,200 and that should be 11,200. So.
Oh, that's right.
11,200 is the carryover and they're asking for 5,000 additional.
And what's the end result going to be of this expenditure?
Every so
What are we going
often-
to get out of it?
A report, because every so often, by state law, we need to reassess all the impact fees that we impose to the citizens. So this is the periodic update, and you will see below also the traffic impact fees needs to go through the same process.
Same thing, okay, good enough.
Yep. So that's line 61 and 62. Lines 63 and 64 is for the Parks Preserve Plan update. Line 65 is making an adjustment to the estimated revenue into the road fund for the parks program because they had budgeted the conservation futures revenue higher than the cap allows. And then they had not budgeted some trail permit impact fee. So this is a technical change. Line 66 is the corresponding reduction in conservation futures. Line 67 is a stormwater and utility transfer of revenue.
Just reorganization.
And
Yes,
that
from the
one,
REOR.
that one in 967 is tied to 101 and 103.
It's all just a technical change because of the transfer of the,
It's moving from one fund to another.
right. Line 68 is the funding for the Tilly campus sand and materials shed construction. Line 69 is the carry forward for the traffic impact fee study program. Line 70 is for the chip seal program, carry forward. Line 71 is a fund transfer.
Hey, wait, just a second. You got by me without catching on here. On the sand covered deal that we've been talking about moving for quite some time. That's gonna be, is that gonna be over $1 million to do that?
It is not just moving the sand shed. It is moving the sand shed to the back to a permanent location with a more permanent structure, and also includes parking next to the sand shed. So it's two elements the department's planning to do with this request.
And where is this money actually coming from?
It's a combination of building reserves and the road fund. No general fund.
Right, but still, we're taking away from a resurfacing project or something. We're taking money out of another area to accomplish this.
So there has already been allocated money in 2018. So this request is to carry forward into 2019 since the work has not been able to complete it. And also you see in 2020 is a reduction of that. They trying to, hopefully they planning to do this in 2019.
I guess my concern is they're asking for almost another $1 million to, $925,000 to complete this.
It's the same $1 million. It's the same $1 million that was approved last year that was not spent. So
Okay.
they're just asking to spend it this year.
I guess what I'm looking for is we're already diverting $4 million in one fashion or another from the road fund. I'm wondering if this is worth it to do this. I know we've been talking, the county has been talking about this sand shed being moved for the last 10 years. And is that a good expenditure of that $1 million versus just let it ride where it is? I know they always say there's environmental issues, liability, exposure, all that, but what has changed for 2020 that isn't the same problem today? And this whole business about, we're always talking about, oh, we got to quit robbing the road fund, but here we're robbing the road fund to doing something, although it does have to do with getting sand on the roads and such, so I see a connection there. But I'm just wondering if it is really, if it's a smart move on our part. That's all. That's my concern.
At some point, and you have visited the Public Works campus, and we have had to replace the tarp over the sand
Yes.
shed
Yeah.
many times. And over the winter, this has not been replaced, which is harming the ability to keep in a dry sand.
Yeah.
And it's more about the finding a permanent location for the operations of this. That's really the request. In building a permanent structure, the staff doesn't have to come back and stretch a tarp every so often.
I guess what I'm wondering is is it possible that the private corporate outfits out there, whomever they are, that do supply sand, gravel, road mix, whatever it is, do any of them have dry sand that they sell to municipalities or other counties or Pierce County or whatever, that we could be, on the days that we need dry sand, be buying dry sand elsewhere instead of building a building to keep the sand dry? I'm just looking for options to save money.
We do. The suppliers provide the sand.
I know, but
So
when we need it, is it available? I mean,
Well,
we need
that-
it on
that-
an icy day in January
Well,
or something.
that's the risk.
I know,
The county may want to take in competing with other jurisdictions that may require
Well,
additional
I'm just
sand.
wondering, I mean, we've talked about that for a truck wash and a couple other things. We've tried to look at a better way of doing business. And yes, we might have to drive to DuPont to get it, which is a few more miles or whatever. I'm just saying, is there a way we can save money so we don't have to keep robbing from the road fund?
So in the long run, would that really save money? the
Yeah.
time and inefficiency
Well,
for a certain
But
truck
we
to
got
go
global
out and
warming
the
coming.
time of need.
Hopefully we won't need as much sand. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm trying to find a better
Well, I
way.
was just gonna, just procedurally, because if this was a new request, I pretty much had all the same questions that you had when I first saw this. And I was thinking, I didn't really understand the project, frankly. I didn't put a lot of thought into it, because what I thought I understood is that money was appropriate. I don't, I don't see it as my role to disrupt, decisions made by the previous board and projects that are in midstream. So I didn't put a lot of brain power to this, because I felt like the project was sort of in midstream. If I'm wrong about that, let me know. But I definitely had the same thoughts about it that
Has it been
Commissioner
begun?
Edwards.
Well, it's been going on, it's been postponed by prior boards. I don't, for how long? It's been being postponed for 10 years or so.
At probably a much lower rate than 1.1.
Not that long.
No postpone, no, not necessarily postpone. It has been more in terms of what is it that we really need to do at the campus. And even goes back to several of the steps. As you may remember, that was before you. When we built the Tilley campus, it had a restriction on how much coverage, meaning roof and impervious surfaces we can build on the
That comes
facility.
back to pervious, impervious soil
So
baloney that is in place right now, but okay.
If I may.
Finish.
Go ahead, go ahead.
So we changed that. So it was more of a larger strategy as to how this campus can be more effective. So the board at that time added to the comp plan amendment, which we changed the requirements of the previous versus impervious surfaces for this site. So we added capacity to add surfaces. At that point is when we were in the position to go ahead and start looking as to the right location as to what the sand shed is, because the current location is considered temporary. It is not considered to be a permanent impervious surface. So that's how the sequence of events have come to you. And also within the whole context, the tire wash was part of the project. With that point, we looked for different alternatives, but we needed to address the contamination. It was generated by washing the wheels on site, which we have addressed that already. Last year, we had a spill that we needed to address right away. So there is a lot of needs on the site in order to be effective on the operations, what the Public Works does. So, and this is just another element of the larger plan.
Any idea more on that?
Well, just my notes from the first meeting said building reserve fund plus public works budget, but Commissioner Edwards is talking about
That's right.
road funds. I mean,
The Public Works budget is the road fund.
Road fund.
okay, so it's connected there.
Yeah.
And
In
where
the-
are we in terms of I mean, how much has been spent on this project so far? They just delayed it a year, or have they
That's
done
a
anything?
question I can't answer.
I don't have how much has it spent. I don't have that number for you today, Commissioner. I can probably reach out. But certainly it has been done, all the engineering studies that is to this point.
Okay.
Hang on, Gary. In 2017, I took a tour of Public Works down there in the yard, and Brian, what was his last name? And then he went to, who do we have as the,
Brian Hanks.
yes.
Brian Hanks.
So Brian gave me the tour along with a couple other fellows, and it was a real eye opener. And I asked, and he explained truck wash stuff, and what would really be nice. But I asked, what is it that we could do? What do they really need? And back in 2017, he said, this thing, this shed. And he said, for all the right reasons, he laid it out. And I said, well, that makes sense. But I didn't know much about budgeting at that point and where it would come from, road fund and such. But it was a real need for the public works staff then. And if it has been for some time, and now it's here, I can see that, and I can picture it down there. But that's just a little bit of history I have. Now I've got to sort it out, whether we spend the money or not. Go ahead, Gary.
I guess I feel this is an example of the silliness of government regulation that really doesn't need to be, that ends up costing the taxpayers a heck of a lot of money unnecessarily. And what I'm getting at is, when it comes to the impervious soil condition, a gravel driveway is considered impervious soil. So I suppose it's impervious in all that area that they use for driving on out there. I don't know that. But I know the citizens, when they come in to get a request to build something, the calculation of impervious soil is used against them on a gravel driveway. If they've got a long gravel driveway, they're paying a penalty.
What's that got to do with this?
It has everything to do with this because we are, during the building of that whole project, we said we'd only have so much impervious soil, or impervious surface.
Right.
All that gravel area could be impervious surface because it's a driveway. And that is just pure, it's a lie by the bureaucrats to the citizens to create more regulatory cost, and that's why government costs so much money.
What I'm hearing, though, tell me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing is you don't want to expend the money because someone coming in for a permit can't get a permit because their driveway is asphalt.
No,
no.
No.
Am I missing the point?
Not because it's asphalt, because it's gravel.
Or gravel.
That is all gravel area down there, and I suppose it's classified as impervious, which I'm not willing to buckle under to the bureaucrats in government that have come up with, you can only have so much impervious soil.
Right, and
on
you're a
surface.
bureaucrat in government.
Yep.
And so I still don't get the piece of this, because you were also saying, let's go buy sand. If ours gets wet, let's go buy it. And that seems like a waste of taxpayer dollars
Well,
too. Let's get rid of
we
all the
have to-
sand.
We have
Get
to
rid of
buy
all
it
of
anyway. We have to buy the sand anyway.
Do we sell sand to cities?
What
When
we
it comes
did
to flooding and such, I
this
thought we were selling
past,
sand.
we sold brine to
Brine?
the cities because
Okay.
the cities run out. Yeah.
Interesting debate.
So since you stopped on item 68, what is the pleasure of the board?
That 1.1 all comes out of the road fund.
Yep.
And
All of
building
it.
reserves?
And what's the balance of the road fund currently?
I don't have that.
Their fund balance? They have a $16 million fund balance.
16 million?
So, I mean, I guess I'm just hung up on where we are in the process. I mean, there's a certain, I think these are all valid points. I just think that at a certain point, the money's been swept out of the road fund for a long time, and at a certain point, a decision was made to move forward on this. And why wasn't
Correct.
why didn't that debate happen at that time?
It did.
And it was voted on 2-1 over Commissioner Edwards' objection to move forward, or? And
I don't recall what the
I just
vote
feel in a
was at the
disadvantaged
time.
position at this point to put the brakes on something
Right.
that has the trains on the track and put taxpayer
So,
money on engineering studies that
I
have
I
been
don't
done.
remember
And
the
I
vote. I
cannot
don't
at this
remember it.
time tell you what the vote was. What I can tell you is this was an approved project in a prior year. They've begun the project. They're asking that it didn't get completed by the end of last year, and they're asking to complete it now.
Oh, go ahead.
Whatever, I can't give you the date exactly, but just another piece of this puzzle that is developed since this took place that Robin is referring to is road diversion was at 3 million, I think. And then somewhere along the line, we cut that back, and then we did another shenanigan that is a process of getting that same money, moving it to general fund, and it's a legal maneuver, and I can't think of the legal term
It
of
is
it
a legal
right now.
maneuver. It is not a
There's
shenanigan.
no shenanigans.
I know,
Everything is done
but-
within the
Completely legal.
premise of the law.
Yeah, I know,
Yes.
it's rob Peter to pay Paul, but what is that move?
So
What
it's-
we
it's
just
the
So
road-
it's
it's
a
the road-
road levy shift.
A levy shift, that's it. We did a levy shift and increased the amount of diversion from the road fund, I think from 3 million to 4 million to fill a void in our current expense budget. And that's why I'm against expending this money, because it's taken another million out of the road fund. And we just got done with the benefit district, transportation benefit district discussion quite lengthily about how if we don't keep our maintenance up, our cost just keeps escalating more and more and more and more. And I know they changed the code, the comprehensive plan for impervious soil, because of some bureaucratic regulatory stuff, I think it was down to 10%, which is killing us on being in compliance, and there is no reason for it to be 10%. It's one of those regulatory things that cost government a lot of money that doesn't need to be. The best example I can give is the driveway that's gravel, and the rain goes right through it. If it was all paved around there, then I could see where it is truly an impervious soil, or surface.
I thought I heard you say
So
that, go ahead.
So the decision points were made at the same time. The board approved this project, and the board approved the diversion in the road levee shed both at the same time.
Okay, maybe so. I don't remember.
How much
the
work
dates.
was done on the project thus far? 10%, 50%, 20? Do we have a guess? Or how much money of that project has been spent
Well,
thus far?
Commissioner Messer asked the same question. I don't have the answer to that question,
Okay,
Commissioner.
that's it. All right.
But certainly the studies has been completed, and they're in the process to implement that.
Okay.
And I guess my argument I'll end with, it's either we're short in the road fund or we're not. We have to set priorities of road fund expenditure to keep our roads up or not. So that's where I'm at on this.
But we've been diverting road funds
Yes, long time.
for a lot of places,
30
not to the
years.
roads.
More than 30 years.
And you know, I learned that from you.
Yes. I was
Now I'm
instru-
hearing, don't do it.
That's, I know, well,
So,
I don't think this is high enough
so I'm going
priority.
Got
to
it.
call the vote.
This is part of the stormwater movement out there as well, isn't it?
No.
No. So
Good gravy.
How you like to
I'm
proceed,
asking
Commissioner?
for a thumbs up or thumbs down on continuing this project that was already begun.
Is there a deadline?
They are saying that it will take about 5 months to complete.
So I don't recommend for you to delay this decision,
Okay.
Commissioner, because you're delaying the project is going to be more expensive.
All right.
I just say we don't do the project and buy sand somewhere else, but anyway.
Right. So I got a thumbs up, a thumbs, and 2 thumbs up. Okay,
Wow.
thank you.
I will just say that this is the kind of decision that I'll be very willing to make. I'm only thumbs up because I feel very constrained by the position that we're in terms of the being made by previous boards.
So one of the things that we're working on, so that you're not in this position in the future, is we're doing research into how the capital budget can work. And we believe that in the future, once you approve a capital project, it doesn't matter what year it falls in, you approve a project and an amount for the project, and you're done. And people won't have to come back and say, move the money between the years anymore. We think that we found where that is a legal process. Depending on how we write the resolution, we're working with Elizabeth to make sure we can do that. And in the future, you shouldn't see the, okay, it's a carry forward anymore. This should be the last time you go through this.
So I wouldn't even have had that option.
That's right.
Okay.
It would have been,
On-
the
on-
project was approved.
Unless
and
the
done.
expenditures increases, then where they're
Then
going
we
to
would be
become,
coming
it's a
back to
different
you and saying-
conversation.
And this is not
override.
that situation, right?
It's
Because
not.
it's
This is not an
carrying through,
increase.
it's really financial strategies in terms of project delivery. Because the project delivery, you have on a schedule at some point, and that sometimes that schedule doesn't materialize, and that schedule has funding. When the schedule shifts, the expenditure shifts
I'll
along
just say
with
when
it.
the next decision point of this nature comes up, I'll be right with Commissioner Edwards on that because we need to stop the road fund diversions and.
Right.
Yeah, and I really respect and value your perspective, Gary, and your opinion. I do.
This is a
But
democratic process.
but when I
I
hear-
don't-
I'm
no
glad
hard
you brought
feelings.
it up.
But when I
I'm
hear
glad
from the
you brought it up.
employees down there how much value this adds to their operation and function, and the fact that we already approved it a year or so ago, I'm okay with it. Yeah, we're already into the project.
Okay.
I will say a year or so ago, we didn't know very much.
That's true. That's very true. That's valid.
Probably what I'll be saying next year about myself.
All right, moving on. I think we're down to emergency services. That's line 71 and 72. This is a transfer from the Medic One Reserve to the Medic One Operating Fund. Should have been done last year.
Wait. What about line 69 and 70 and
Oh, we already,
Yeah, we kind
okay.
of covered
that's
those.
all together?
I was reading while she was going down there.
He took me backwards. But we can go back to 69 is the carry forward
Carry
for the
forward, right.
traffic impact fee study, and then 70 is a carry forward for the chip seal program. Line
Okay.
71 and 72 is a transfer from Medic One Reserve to the Medic One Operating Fund. It
That's a
should have been done a year
Technical
ago.
correction.
It is technical correction. Line 73 is a reduction in anticipated revenue.
Noxious weeds.
That it's technical change. Line 74 is funding is coming in for the seizure hearings for the interlocal drug enforcement.
But I have a note down
So-
here on that one. Hold, because we're still in negotiation.
Right.
Okay, so we're not deciding on that one.
So it's a thumbs down to
Okay.
this.
Wait, oh, wait a minute.
Okay, so with this is good.
Which one again?
74.
So we're on line 74, it's at the bottom of page 14.
Okay,
The sheriff's office is requesting to pay the prosecutor for representation on the task force. Now, it's my understanding that the sheriff currently funds at least a portion of a prosecutor position that they are saying they will no longer fund. The prosecutor has not apparently agreed to this. So it's still in negotiation is the comment that I think I
well,
heard.
I guess I'm gonna make a comment here. I don't know where we're at on this. May I?
No, certainly.
10 years ago or more, the city of Olympia removed people from the interlocal drug unit. And look what we've got downtown now. And I don't know what this is all about, but anytime you quit doing drug enforcement, I think you end up with serious problems. So how this all connects, I'm not sure. Whether the sheriff and the prosecutor can get along or not, I'm not sure about it, but to me, it's a sensitive community issue that we need to pay attention to is all.
So it's my understanding, and I've been gone a little while, so I might not remember all the details, that no one is suggesting that we're not following up on drug enforcement, but rather the prosecutor currently has a position that is partially funded out of the Narcotics Task Force Fund.
Yes.
What I believe the proposal is, and the proposal's not complete, is that the sheriff is saying that the task force fund will no longer fund the prosecutor position.
Just because they don't have any resources in that particular fund?
No, it's because they want to use the resources for other things. And instead of partially funding the position, they will pay a per day cost of the prosecutor representing the task force. What you don't see here is if the task force money is supporting the prosecutor's position now, and it won't in the future, how will the prosecutor pay for that position? Believe the intent is to just pay out of general fund balance. And we don't see that side. And then we also heard that the prosecutor and the sheriff had not agreed to this, which is why the general fund reduction for the prosecutor's position was not paid.
Go ahead, Romero.
I think it's two different things. It goes back to last year when the fiduciary responsibility moved from the city of Lacey to the city of to Thurston County, and within that agreement, it was an administrative person who came from the city of Lacey that is working in the prosecuting attorney's office.
It's not that position.
So it's not that position. So here is what they're trying, or they're saying, because I believe the representation on the seizures before the county took responsibility was provided by the city of Lacey. Because they were the fiduciary responsibilities. And I think now they're trying to put up parameters to have the prosecuting attorney represent the sheriff's office on the hearing of the seizures. And they're trying to put a limit of $12,000 a year for 2020, and that will be $1,000 per each state with the represent. They expect to be 12 days. I think that is the request what we see right now, as I understand.
That's not how they described it to us.
I think
Because
the,
in-
That makes more sense.
Because in the past, the prosecuting attorney was not representing the task force, as I believe.
Oh, no,
Well,
the
the
prosecuting
prosecutor's always
attorney's
done
been
the,
on the
uh,
task force
the
for many
seizure
years.
hearings.
But on the hearings.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's there.
But now, since that financial was done by the city of Lacey, so now this is requests for the sheriff's office, which right now is the fiduciary responsibility to pay for those costs.
So Lacey was paying for the county attorney then, and now that Lacey's out, it's the sheriff's gig. The sheriff's expected to pay, and he doesn't want to pay.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, he's changed how the original, it used to be they had a deputy prosecutor and they billed
Wayne,
back to
yeah.
task force. for
Right.
$85,000 a year. And when the task force came here, they transferred that FTE portion of it to this fund.
Right.
Instead of billing it out. And now the sheriff
Is
said, I don't
reducing.
want to do that anymore. And I want to bill it this way.
So it's not
So-
that someone else was paying, it's that the sheriff doesn't want to pay as much.
So the sheriff
Well,
and the
because now
prosecutor are
they are
negotiating
in the
this.
position to manage the fund.
Correct. Well,
As in the
No,
deposit was reimbursement.
actually, the task force board sets a budget that, it's my understanding, included the prosecutor payment. And now the task force board is changing its mind midstream to exclude the payment to the prosecutor, but the prosecutor's on the task force board and doesn't interpret the decision of the task force board the same as the sheriff does.
Yeah, because what I understand is they want to limit to up to 12 days representation period, as opposed to having a broad
Right.
umbrella.
Which actually would not be an increase in funding, it would be a
A
decrease
decrease,
in
yeah.
funding. So this whole line item is,
Well, if they're arm wrestling over the issue, I would say no until they get it sorted out. That's just me.
Aren't they civil asset forfeitures a big source of revenue? I mean, don't they, the whole point of it is to bring in rent money.
yes,
Right.
Oh, and,
So you'd think that
they
that
do.
would cover at least the cost of the representation.
it does. But the sheriff wants to use that money for other things.
Well,
right, because on the number 75 is they're asking for a sheriff deputy, and that's where they propose have the savings from the deputy prosecutor.
Go ahead, Gary.
I don't know why
But we don't see
we're
that savings here at all.
in a position right now, if they don't have it figured out between them, and they're the main players, why we need to make that decision now, why we can't delay this. And I might mention that on something that's this big of a policy change, I would like to have the prosecutor and the sheriff appear here on TV with us and explain their positions. We went through something like this a while back on some budget things, and it changed the way things were laid out when that scenario was put in place, and I'd like to hear both sides of the story. I don't know both sides of the story.
On one hand, I'd love to hear them chat about it, but on the other hand, if we bring A and B in, and A says, I believe this, and B says, I believe this, then where are we at the end? We're not
Well,
going to decide
We
who's right or wrong.
we might have a better understanding hearing
We'll have a
them.
better understanding.
That's all. I'm looking for a better understanding of the whole process.
Maybe
Find a favor
what
saying
I'm
no.
hearing is maybe I can organize a briefing with the prosecutor and the sheriff just to give you a perspective on the narcotics task force. Now the county is the fiduciary
Right.
responsibility.
Yeah, we've had quite a few drastic changes there lately.
I'll work on something.
And that may hasten their agreement
Yeah.
Right.
on something.
So what I'm hearing
I'm
is
good with
that
that.
you may want to delay this.
I
You're
would
not
ask-
saying no
I would
delay.
ask to
74
delay
and
it.
75, which are connected,
You're going to delay
Mm-hmm.
that, okay.
are delayed.
Okay.
Which is still a no. A no is a delay.
It's a no for now.
Thank you. Antics with
Line
semantics.
76 is, why is this a reduction?
So we're delaying 75 as well?
Yes, because they're all connected.
Got it.
Because what happens, I think it was a line item of the general fund that was coming into, and the JAG should have come into this protected fund, the revenue of the new grant.
So if the revenue should be coming in, why is the
Yeah, that's what-
expenditure
This is
less?
tied to the interlocal drug enforcement funding mechanism.
So it's all part of
I would
that?
say if 74 and 75, then
76 should be
delayed.
delayed as
Delayed
well?
as well?
Yes.
Well, 76 is that JEG grant that you already approved.
Yeah,
Right,
it's the
but
JAG
it
grant.
says that this is to be used for 57% of the commander position in the task force.
But remember, this is the one that's being updated. They have part of it, Robin, if you recall, in the general fund, and they needed to take it all out of the general fund and move it
Put it
all
in here.
into here.
So
can
I
you
don't
repeat that?
understand why this is a negative.
Can you repeat that for the microphone though, Robin?
Entered it in.
Ah. So the entry to this line, so the JAG grant has been approved by the board to accept the 2017
Money.
JAG fund. And the original entry was both in the general fund, and it should have been in the interlocal drug enforcement fund. And it's showing as a negative here because the entry is inaccurate.
Yes.
It needs to be
Try to
fixed.
look it up,
And we're working on it.
I don't get it. Why is it negative then?
So that's the whole question, why is it negative? So we will sort this one out.
It's showing the revenue is positive, but then it has negative expenditure.
I see, yes, for whatever reason,
There was-
it's got to be fixed.
I think it balances out with the new grant, so.
All right. Line 77 is public health.
Marcia sends her apologies, she had to leave her last week.
Okay, so this is a decrease in expenditures in the Nurse Family Partnership Program.
This helps align those positions that were part-time
Yeah.
to full-time, takes the reduction. and-
Because you may recall the board approved accepting additional grant monies through the state for the Nurse Family Partnership early in the year. That money didn't materialize to the dollar amount, and this is a reduction of those revenues, and what they do is trying to realign those positions to meet the current revenues. So it's not an impact on.
And we are sure that we're still meeting the maintenance of effort requirements?
Yeah.
Okay. So then
I
this
did ask
is,
Shell about that, and it's okay, reducing the revenue since there were vacant positions. That really doesn't have an impact.
okay.
All right, that's clear as mud to me. but
Yeah.
I'm kind of waiting for
So
that.
it turns out to be a
Yeah.
technical change. If we're not bringing in revenue, then we can't
Okay,
spend it.
so are you saying, yeah, we want to do this, or no,
Yes,
we
you
don't,
need to
or-
do this.
Okay.
But the
Because
state
we're
was going to
not
give us,
bringing in the money.
So that's the question that I had last time I clarified. There is a technical adjustment because reducing the revenue from outside that's what we have to do.
Right,
And
so
that's what it does.
the state awarded us money, but not as much as we thought?
Yep,
basically,
and we need to reduce the expenditures currently.
Okay.
right.
I could get clarification for the JAG grant. So it's funding, it's additional funding, and it's funding for, what's the, person's name, the
David
captain?
Johnson.
David Johnson. So there's 0 increase to expenditure, it's revenue increase only, and it covers his position.
Okay,
So that's the correction. Just a revenue increase.
so it's a revenue increase,
The grant
We
will
usually don't
cover
complain
the
about revenue increases.
right?
The
It
entry is,
balances out. So this
Yeah.
is
The
the
entry is
technical
wrong.
entry.
Yes.
It's a
Yeah.
technical entry.
So 76 is
Big
a
reduction.
yes, or?
76 should be a yes.
It's revenue only, there's no increase in spending to expenditure. It's
so the
covering
entry was
existing
wrong from the
position.
beginning.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Got it.
So we are on line 78, which is a technical adjustment for the treatment sales tax interfund to the public health fund. Line 79 is a reduction, it's a,
Tied to capital.
right. It is part of a capital project where they're realigning a number of projects and carrying money forward, are they?
They're carrying forward.
It's carry forward.
Delphi Road.
And it's connected to line 80. Line 81 is the operating transfer for the impact fees to the road fund. 82 is
The
that
expenditure line.
offset, so 81 and 82 go together. 83 is the carry forward for the Independence Road project. 84 is the county road safety improvements carry forward. 85 is the increase funding for the courthouse building 3 project. This is the one where the cost of the project is more than had been anticipated. The original estimate was about 300,000. And they are requesting REIT 1, but I would recommend paying as much as we can out of building reserve.
Building reserves. And this project is going to do the fixing the leaky roof as well as
Yeah.
building a small additional courtroom
got
in
to
district
do it.
court.
Yeah.
Okay, but
You, I
what,
don't think you're here for that discussion.
okay, all I want to know is just the difference in
Yeah.
amount. The estimate was how much? And they're asking for how much?
900 total.
So
The
it's going
original?
from 350,000 to 900,000?
Yes,
No, from 300 to 950.
yeah, 300 to 950.
The additional
It is a
650.
significant increase in cost.
And we didn't hear about that at all? I mean,
Now-
we
now you're
normally
here-
wouldn't hear about it?
No, now
Only
you-
until now?
You,
Well, you approve, and so let me give you I'm going to get to the answer that you have. And I think there is a need to do a much better job in planning projects.
Well, I'll tie that in with the jail across the way. I
So
mean, we
what-
ran into a
Let's
rut
hear
there.
If I
this-
may,
Let's hear this.
Jeez.
So, within that context, what I'm meaning with that is when a project comes up as a need, we need to take the time to determine how much it's going to cost, how long it's going to take, and the level of effort. Because what I have found is when a project comes up, we tend to do a very, very, very high level estimate that sets a different set of expectations that exactly comes to you as a cost increase, as opposed to taking the time from the beginning and have a realistic, somewhat a realistic estimate as to how much it's going to cost. So you, the board, have that idea from the beginning as to how much this is going to cost. That helps you to make those decisions. And this is what we need to do better moving into the future. And that is an attempt to really start looking as to how we manage projects from beginning to end. Because I totally agree with you that you find yourself as a surprise how much it's going to cost. But perhaps may not necessarily be is because we estimated wrong from the beginning, perhaps.
Yeah.
The notes I have from our first meeting said jail expansion could be impacted, and that leads me to what you just said. And when are we getting revised cost estimates on our options for the flex unit?
And I just checked with the staff, and maybe within a month we'll come back with a formal briefing on this.
So the impact to the jail project would be if we pay it out of REIT 1. We're trying to conserve money right now in REIT 1 so that we can afford the flex unit.
So this request, we're suggesting that we can maximize building reserves and reduce the impact on REIT 1.
Yes.
Go ahead, Gary.
Two things. The 350,000, and they're asking for 650 more? It was 350?
300.
It was 300.
Oh, it was 300. Okay, I was going to say that added up to $1 million. Okay, now, the other thing is on the REIT 1 funds versus what is going towards paying off that, I don't know, $60 million jail or something. What funds are utilized for that? I thought there was going to be additional funds coming in from that jail tax or,
Detention sales tax? Is that what you're
yeah,
talking about?
detention sales tax was going to pay for that expansion somehow.
No.
No.
It's maxed out? Is that
I
one
don't know
maxed
that
out already?
I don't know that the detention sales tax is maxed out, but to the extent that there is capacity there, I would recommend that you reserve that for operating costs. It can pay for operating. REIT can only pay for construction. And you are going to have increased operating costs when the jail expansion is completed.
I'd sure like to hear about that, how that all fits at some point.
Sure.
Maybe in a month, whenever you're going to give us that estimate, the new estimate. I'd like to hear a little bit more about the funding and how that might all tie together, because that was the original problem with that whole thing, was they went ahead with the project but didn't have any funding to make it work.
Right.
And I don't want to go ahead with the project and not have any funding to make it work.
No, and in fact, the upcoming briefing in a month is going to be key in specifically as to how much we can afford and where the money could come from.
Right.
That is really going to be the centerpiece of the briefing,
Right.
Commissioner.
And you're not being asked at this time to make any decisions about the flex unit.
Okay. So what, line 85?
Okay. So 85 is an increase to be able to complete the project in Building 3.
You need thumbs ups for this stuff?
I do.
Unless,
I mean,
Yeah.
we're already doing it, aren't we? Doing
Yes.
it?
yeah.
It's a mandatory.
It's
Gotta-
not something that we cannot do.
It's not cosmetic.
Yeah. It's replacing
So
some
what
major
we're going
leaks.
So I
to
can't even really vote against it, is what you're telling
Well,
me.
so what
do what you wish.
the commitment that you have from staff is that we will make an attempt to reduce the request on REIT 1, and we'll maximize the building reserves
Right.
to accomplish the same objective.
But then are we stealing from another area that's going to leave us
No.
short as we go to put a roof on something? That's my concern.
Maybe.
Right, that's my concern too.
Well, and that is part
What's
of
the impact of stealing?
the balancing, the balancing.
That's why we
the
have to
balancing act.
look and see
I don't know how
much
badly
can
we need the
do.
building reserve fund versus how badly we need the REIT 1 fund.
For other purposes.
Yeah, okay.
All what we're going to explore. Okay, so the next, or the remaining items on
This is
this
all carryovers.
are all carryover items for projects that were already approved, as are the first 4 lines at the top of page 18. Line 95 is an FTE correction. They were not budgeted correctly in the system, so we need to add the additional funding to pay for the FTEs that have already been approved. And this is a technical fix, and there is sufficient money in the solid waste fund.
Okay, let me just ask a question about this, because this affects the solid waste. So, on this kind of a deal, is this something that at least gets discussed in front of that SWAC committee? I mean, it just because there's so much turmoil about what is going on, and that those people don't feel like they're being informed about anything. Is this a move afoot that, again, circumvents their knowledge? Because I have no problem sharing public information with this group
I can ask
as we move it.
You want to come to the microphone then, please? Thank you. Yes, you must. Thank you.
This is going to sell somebody out, but these positions were completely funded. Karen, the Public Works Fiscal Manager, was reallocating them in the budget system, and it was actually just a data input error. It was an error. It's very hard to piecemeal out these, to change 0.23 to one org and another org, and it absolutely was a fiscal error is all it was. It was totally funded. The FTE or the extra help, it's truly a data input error
that's what it
during
says.
the
It says
budget
that.
process. I
It
mean,
does.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Is this
it
kind
should have been in the budget, and it was.
It is part of their plan.
So it's a technical correction?
It is.
It absolutely.
It has nothing to do with SWAC.
No,
No.
we're not
But-
changing funding, we're not changing
But perhaps
policy, we're not.
related to Commissioner Edwards, bring in the letter that you received from the City of Olympia for your discussion this next Tuesday morning. And really, at that point, I will ask the board as to what is the level of extent you want the SWAC committee to participate in this process. If you want the SWAC committee to make decisions related to budget, that's the direction that you give me, and we'll implement that. So at this point, really, all that direction is up to you. Whether you want to open the request for proposals up again, that is up to you. And at that point, you will give me the direction as to how you like to manage the SWAC committee.
Oh.
So, and that is coming up next Tuesday for your discussion.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, but just to follow up on that, my concern on SWAC, I don't know exactly how it fits, and I'm not asking or recommending that they are involved in the whole budget process. What I'm asking that body to do is give us input so that we can make the best decisions for the public, and that's why we've got a diverse group of individuals on there that can maybe point out something that was missed, or a thought process that was not taken into consideration, and advise us. That's what they're there for, is to advise. So I want the advice that they might have so that I can make a better decision. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and that conversation, again, you need to give me the parameters as to what the level of advice that you want. And I will be looking for that direction from the board. Because as you receive feedback from the SWAC committee, I also receive feedback from the SWAC committee and from you. And that's what I like to know, where you like to move forward. You need to give me the parameters as to the level of engagement that you want the SWAC committee to be part of your decision-making process.
I want to glean any expertise I can from that group so that I can make a better public decision. That's kind of the direction.
So, well, I'm not asking you
I
a
know,
direction
no
right today.
boundaries.
Okay, we're not doing that now.
Right.
No
So-
boundaries?
And we're running out of time.
Well, just looking for advice. I'm not
Okay.
asking that they get
So-
to make the decision. Okay,
Right.
good enough.
We'll talk about that
Okay, We'll
Tuesday.
talk
All
about
right.
that later.
I'm with you
Sounds
on
like
Ready? We're going to go. Page 19, top of the page, is a technical adjustment because we're not collecting as much revenue in solid waste. Line 97 is the carryover for staff costs to reimburse the general fund. It's technical. 98 is a grant in the Storm and Surface Water Utility Fund. 99 and 100 and 101 are all adjustments from having moved staff between departments. So all technical. 102 is a carry forward. 103 is a technical adjustment to the revenue. 104 is the contract for the boundary review board coming out of
So it
the,
was in land use and we were paying land use and so now it's in Department 23. So this takes spending authority.
it's a
away.
technical adjustment, thank you. 105 is again, a staffing change adjustment, so it's technical. 106 is it's a plan update,
Yeah,
so that is funded from the utility fund.
It's just like a carryover item, or why is there 20,000? for
that's
this plan?
additional expenditure. That is in coordination with the Boston Harbor,
The Boston
group.
Harbor Utilities
Water.
has some more maintenance needs, and so they were buying a generator earlier, they're updating their plans, and the whole condition of all those utilities are under review.
And there's money for this?
Yeah.
In the funds.
That's the healthiest utility that we have, Boston Harbor,
Right.
relatively speaking,
Financially, you mean?
financially.
The next three items at the top of page 21 are all carry forward for the Grand Mound utilities. Then environmental health on line 110 is grant funding coming in. 111 is a reduction, but it's technical in nature because of the split between IT and central services. Line 112 is the technical transfer from the general fund for the parking lot maintenance. Lines 113 and 114 are technical adjustments between funds. And line 15 and 16 are, well, line 15, 115 is a carryover for items that were purchased but not received. This is technical in nature. Because in government, you can't pay for a good or service until you've actually received it. We ordered it last year, it didn't make it in by December 31st, so we have to pay for it this year. And then line 116 is update for equipment that was not on the original list. So,
Did somebody just figure out
Wow.
that cold commissioners make faster budget decisions?
someone's turned on the,
Golly.
yeah, I'm getting
Holy
more
cow.
stuffy by the moment.
You're the only one
On the
appropriately dressed.
capital
So you think
list.
that was on the strategy behind that,
Yeah,
Commissioner?
like at Ocean Shores, they froze us out to make
Oh,
us
that was
cooperate.
There are 9 new capitals, the rest of them are all carry forward or continuations. So there are 9 new projects out of this fund list.
Thank you.
Well, it could be new projects,
So
have to be in a capital
my question to
facilities.
you is, it's my understanding that you've reviewed the capital project list twice. As Michelle is saying, the vast majority are carry forward. All the other projects are on the capital facilities plan and have been approved by the board. The funding is available in the funds. And so my question is there anything on this list that you would specifically like to talk about? If not, I recommend that you just approve the entire list.
And we will be able to talk about it at a later date, coming up at some point, like October or whatever. Don't we do quarterly things here?
We are working on a quarterly project report for you where you will have an opportunity to see progress
Yeah.
made in these projects.
Yep, okay.
Good?
I'm
Yes
following
to
you.
all of the
Alexis, your
capital.
capital?
Okay.
Yes,
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry,
excellent.
yes. Yeah.
And we're done.
Anything for the good of the order?
Well,
Anything,
are we going back
Romero?
onto our agenda, you mean, for the next
No.
little bit?
No,
Commissioners'
because
items
nope,
and stuff?
because
was
I'm
it?
just saying, I'm just being polite.
Oh.
Anything? Because it's noon 01, I've got another commitment.
Okay,
Romero, anything?
Nope,
Robin,
thank you.
okay, we're done.
okay.
We're done. Thank you, folks. See you, bye.
Just being polite.
Yeah, what are you gonna do?